James Blonde. This was just one of the negative criticisms of the October 2005 announcement made by Eon to cast relative newcomer Daniel Craig as the new iteration of Ian Fleming's James Bond. Many believe this decision to be in poor taste due to the fact that Craig was not tall, dark, handsome, and charismatic like the role often demanded, but rather blonde, buff, steely, and cold. In the end, this change of look and character ended up being one of the most praised aspects of this film. Based on the very first Ian Fleming novel, the rights of which were not possessed by Eon until 1999, the film released in the US on November 17, 2006, and was a very positively received hit, ending up with a worldwide gross of approximately $600 million off of a reported budget of $150 million. A reboot of the series, the film introduces Bond as a fledgling agent, fresh out of the service, and without his infamous license to kill. The cold open, filmed in black and white, shows us how Bond achieved his 00 status in all its brutal glory. Dispensing with many of the tropes audiences had come to love about the series, the new direction of this film drives the plot forward without any of the usual pit stops with silly gadgets, Q, or Miss Moneypenny. The only familiar face here is Judi Dench, who returns as M despite this being a reboot. Aware of the over-reliance on CGI in the previous Bond film, the Broccoli's decided to keep the action square in the realm of reality by hiring GoldenEye director Martin Campbell, his second time helming the introduction of a new James Bond. Craig would go on to become one of the most well-liked actors to play the role, cementing his name in Hollywood stardom. He would go on to play the role 4 more times after this and has become the actor to maintain the role longer than anybody else has, 14 years. You're listening to Bondcast, James Bondcast. Join me and my co-host Harrison Collin as we dive headfirst into the first film of the most modern version of Ian Fleming's James Bond 007 in 2006's Casino Royale.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Hand after hand, bet after bet. One will rise above the rest. One poker player will conquer all.
Stop touching your ear. Do you remember that part?
I do remember that part.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
It kicked off the one of the best chases in the history of James Bond.
He's a new agent, but he knows all the tricks.
He's a new agent, but he's not like a noob.
Right.
It's just like always. Somehow in spy school, he was top of the class every time because he just had this skill set that came
It's
from
amazing it took him so long.
Sheer talent in a breadth
to
of
gain
fields.
his 00
Alcohol
status.
class.
Alcohol class. Nailing it.
Women class.
Boning class. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just top of his class in boning class.
He can ski.
And that was a hard class.
Hey-o.
He can ski. He can scuba dive. Doesn't matter how high, how low you take him.
Yeah, just any height from higher to lower. He is the shortest James Bond, but still.
He drove a what do you call those? Not a dump truck, but the other thing.
Oh yeah,
bulldozer.
Is it a backhoe?
Construction.
Bulldozer. He drove a bulldozer. Was that really in the training?
Well, no, yeah, that is. I mean, they are actually trained to drive every piece of construction equipment in combat tactics too. Not just like sure he could build a house with it, but also he could fight an army with it.
But yeah, that is funny that like on the construction site he knows how everything works.
Can you imagine jumping into a bulldozer and be like, "Quick, you got to chase somebody in this thing," and be like, "Where are the keys?"
Yeah.
Like, which one of these pedals is the? There's no pedals. There's.
All right, we've already covered the basic uses of the bulldozer. Now we need to cover the ways in which a man can be killed by a bulldozer.
Yeah, exactly.
Open up your manuals.
This is the immersive spy fight construction equipment class. It's an elective.
Yeah.
But at the end of this class, you will be certified in
see
construction equipment fighting.
I see you're here again, Mr. Bond. Making A's again.
I see you handed me an extra report on the hydraulic systems of risers in
Like
construction
the
sites.
accordion scissor lift thing. Yeah.
You know, they don't use steam shovels anymore, but we appreciate your thoroughness in investigating how a steam shovel could be used in combat tactics.
I love when he smashes through that wall, though. That's my favorite
Oh
part.
yeah, the drywall. He just runs through it instead of jumping over it.
I mean,
that is good.
We are so far ahead of like starting off at the beginning like we normally do, but if you guys want, we can just do this entire podcast about that chase, and then we can do another podcast about the movie, because I feel like that chase warrants its own podcast. It is literally my favorite chase in this entire series, my favorite like action sequence in this whole series. It is perfectly done.
It's still talked about to this day. Like when you bring up this movie, people are like, "Yeah, it's a good movie," but that chase, though, like I feel like people mention that. It really is great. Yeah,
Hardcore.
It almost overshadows what is a great movie with nothing but great action sequences and great non-action sequences, and then you have this one thing that was so transcendent and so utterly like new at that point.
Yeah.
And so just perfectly done. As I was talking about it, I said earlier, I could go beat for beat for this and just like talk for an hour on how amazing.
I thought you were going to say I could go beat off right now.
It's that
this
good.
scene is so good.
I have a question.
I mean, it makes me hard, but I don't have to I can finish the podcast.
I have a question though. What were they building in Madagascar directly adjacent to the mongoose snake fighting pit?
He briefly runs through some kind of a
Stadium
farmer's
seats?
market or something. I don't,
You're not helping me with like grabbing a hold of understanding this.
Yeah.
Like,
No, the
what is that
geography-
building going to be?
the geography is a little
It's
questionable.
going to be a stadium for mongoose snake fights.
It's actually a mongoose trainer hotel. It's like the Olympic village. It's like the Olympic village of mongoose trainers, and also I assume snake trainers, because if you're going to train the mongooses,
Where
you
are the
should
mongoose
also-
and snake superstars going to stay?
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
hotel.
So does it have a room for the trainer and a room for the cobra or mongoose or?
Well, they're separated by floors, which is controversial, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it's only a 3-star hotel. So
Oh yeah,
know
and you
about
do
that.
not want to be stuck there as a non-mongoose or snake, because
Wait. Are just the animals allowed in the hotel, or the trainers as well?
no, that's a separate construction. It hasn't started yet.
Yeah,
They're going to
this
build
is-
that after.
it's a long story.
So the building is for the mongoose.
Yeah,
It's a
you
long
can't put mongooses and snakes together. Don't you know?
You know, speaking of the mongoose training section, as I was doing my vast research for this movie, which I could recite backwards and forwards and probably shouldn't have spent so much time reading about, I stumbled on a Reddit thread from before this movie came out that was basically asking like people who had read the script and were like, how much CGI is going to be in this, and will there be a mongoose snake fight, which apparently was in the script, and they were like debating about like, well, they'd have to do it with CGI because they can't actually have a mongoose and a snake. And it's worth noting that there is almost no CGI. Apparently, I think the only computer stuff they did was some wire removal and a little work on the hotel in Venice that collapsed.
The Venice thing was where all the
that
CGI
collapses
was,
at the
yeah.
end. But other than that, even the mongoose snake fight, which is just really cleverly edited with live animals and maybe a couple of puppets, but it's, you know, they do everything practically, and especially this chase sequence that I will continue to rave about until I die.
Honestly, if the chase sequence doesn't start out with them being at a mongoose cobra fight, it's not as good to me.
It's like it loses like 10%
it loses its
credibility.
James Bondness. It loses its like goodness.
Stop touching your ear.
Everything
yeah.
about it is amazing.
Let's go back a beat. Let's go back to the beginning.
to the grainy
The
black and
cold
white
open,
footage.
Even the MGM lion and the Columbia lady
This
are all
is-
in black and white.
We should note this is the first Bond movie that doesn't start with the gun barrel opening, right? Does Dr.
true.
No
Yep.
even start with it?
I
think it did.
Dr. No does
Yeah,
too.
it kind of has a gun.
It's the
barrel.
first canon one. No, it does have a gun barrel. It just
But it
doesn't
just
start.
doesn't
Usually
start
the
with
gun
it.
barrel is
Yeah,
the first
right,
thing you
right.
see. And here we get the
fade
MGM
up
lion
to
and the
a
Columbia
building.
lady all in black and white, and then we go to this gorgeous noir cinematography of this modernist office building and a very dialogue-driven scene where Bond is confronting a guy who is a bent, as they say, British
corrupt
agent. Yeah, he's corrupt.
He's
They've
selling
gotten
secrets.
to him, and that's cross-cut with this high-grain, high-contrast dialogue-free fight scene in a bathroom.
Did you notice how much emphasis he put on the word secrets when he was delivering that line?
Selling secrets. Well, I'm going to say I do love this movie, but I do have a bit of a beef. And over time, and especially after having just watched this movie with the closed captions on, I don't have the problem so much anymore. But I remember the first time seeing this movie, and Daniel Craig kind of mumbles his way through this movie. And there's something about the manner in which he speaks.
It's because I think two other characters are kind of mumbly. I think Eva Green doesn't totally enunciate very well for some of her lines.
And the bad guy, Mads Mikkelsen.
He's the sub bad guy, the guy who knows where is Casino Royale located? Montenegro.
Monte Cristo, the sandwich.
yeah,
That's what I kept thinking. I'm like, it's a sandwich, damn it.
No, it's a delicious sandwich.
What
it's
am
also
I
a
thinking
fine
though?
casino.
Monte
Carlo.
I
don't actually know
the
where
Monte
it's located
Carlo
in this
guy.
movie.
Wait, I think it's Montenegro, isn't it?
Montenegro is a different place, but Monte Carlo is where Casino Royale
How do we
is.
not know where this casino
We're
is?
idiots. Yeah, we've just read
No,
trivia
he's right.
for it
It's
all
Monte
day.
Carlo.
I thought it.
Sure?
I think they
Yeah,
shot it.
no.
In,
I just couldn't
I think
think
they
of
shot
the
it
word.
in Hungary or something, didn't they? But
I know you're
I
hungry.
thought it was like
that's why
Czechoslovakia.
I'm waiting for my Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles to show up.
Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. Sorry. Back to Monte Carlo. The guy there, that guy is super hard to understand. The guy who's like, I'm your contact here in Monte Carlo. What's his name? Mathis or something?
Oh, Mathis?
Yeah, Mathis.
Because he's an Italian
just
guy. He's
is
got
Italian.
a thick Italian accent.
Yeah, but he's really hard to understand and mumbly sometimes also, I feel.
I don't know. I'm going to be in the Colin role in this movie where I defend everything regardless.
Obviously.
But I would.
Someone's got to do it. It's a dirty job.
I don't remember ever having any trouble understanding anything that people were saying. And there's
At all?
Yeah, at
It's
all.
Montenegro. I looked it up.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Suck it.
Well, you were right. And Montenegro is the better of the Montes, I guess. They could have shot in Monte Carlo, I'm sure.
I don't know. They could have gone full.
But they went
Monty,
full.
that is.
They went full Montenegro.
Yeah.
And I actually understood him fine, but I didn't. There is that one line where he mumbles intentionally to Eva Green and says she's an idiot. But that's the only time I remember him mumbling.
He's just like he talks to his
Yeah.
mouth like this.
Yeah.
Talks through his mouth.
Oh, because he's always trying to hold his mouth in that pouty kind of
Yeah.
By the way, I'm sexy.
like he's got to try.
Yeah, Harris is really gonna defend this movie hard.
I mean, look, I'm coming at it from a different point of view because usually I'm the one defending this movie.
Yeah.
Because it is great, but I had to look at it under a microscope and
I'm
really
looking at it under a microscope and it's passing. Everything's great.
You're using a different kind of microscope.
I do love this opening, and it was like the first time I saw it, I was like, they tried something different. And usually when Bond movies try something different in the cold open, first of all, it's black and white. They're cross-cutting between two kinds of black and white film and two different stories. And there's a lot that this could have been bad, and yet the entire time I'm like, I'm a sucker for film noir, and that's basically what they're riffing on a lot here. But at the same time, I remember watching this and just thinking, that is the best Bond cold open ever. And I'd have to go back and look at the other ones that I've liked to really make that determination.
Well, up to
and
this
we should
point-
probably at the end.
Yeah.
But that was my take watching it in the theater for the first time when I was however many years old I was, at that time. And I am, to this day, every time I watch it, I'm like, God, you don't get much better than that. It's the dialogue scene is very clever.
The shit out of that guy in the bathroom is great.
The fight is brutal.
Apparently, they shot a whole sequence. They were at a cricket match,
Right.
And they show you him pursuing that guy. Then he follows him into the bathroom and they fight. But in the end, they were
They
like,
don't
fuck
need
it.
it.
Yeah,
It's just that bathroom fight. They're just breaking every piece of porcelain in there. I mean, the one kind of complaint you could have is this is definitely James Bond not at his peak as a spy because he barely kills that guy
but that's
by
the
drowning
whole
him
point.
and then doesn't kill him and then actually has to shoot him at the end because he didn't even check if he was dead.
Right.
It's like, what an incompetent doof that he had this guy that he was just supposed to assassinate and he couldn't even kill him. But
I think that was all just for the moment, just to have him shoot.
But it's still a great fight. It's just, it's one of those things that it's like, it's not Bond being the polished assassin that will will discover he is.
Right.
So
It gets to that.
It struck me like how it's much more brutal than the standard gunplay stuff. It's
is
really
this the
brutal,
first movie that we've
hands-on
had
kind
where
of-
like we've had a fight scene that is real? You know, obviously it's inspired.
Well, I mean, Roger
by
Moore's fight
the Bourne
scenes were
movies.
just so.
Roger Moore looked like Elvis doing his karate kicks on stage, and people would just be flipping out of his way. Sean Connery always looked like he could carry himself in a fight, but it was so primitive then. Yeah, it was like the karate chops. You ever see Manchurian Candidate?
Which one?
The one
Denzel
with
or
the one
the
with
old one?
Sinatra.
Oh, no. Yeah, well, I think so, but I don't remember it.
It's famous. It's actually a really good movie, but it's famous for being one of the first mainstream Hollywood movie, or the first mainstream Hollywood movie with a karate scene in it, which the karate fight is starring Frank Sinatra and an Asian guy, and they are literally like it's Frank Sinatra doing karate moves.
Was it an actual Asian guy or was it a white guy?
No, I believe it was an actual Asian guy. Okay. The point is, Frank Sinatra is one of the first karate film fighters, and it is exactly what you'd expect if you heard sort of, older karate Frank.
Is he smoking cigarettes while he's doing it?
That's kind of what you're getting, is like a very stiff and not really, like it's kind of primitive. And then even Brosnan didn't really have, like, he had good fight, but he was always shooting guys with machine guns.
Yeah,
exactly.
He was more of a gunplay guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Craig looks like he actually knows some martial arts in this thing. And you get multiple good hand-to-hand combat scenes. Definitely the best we've had in the series so far.
Yeah, well, the thing about him is not so much the martial arts, but like he's just a brute force. He's just like huge, like strong, and like, they even say he, like, the bad guy like compliments. He's like, "Wow, you've taken care of your body," or whatever.
Yeah.
He's the first muscle-bound Bond,
and for the smallest Bond, and for a guy who. I mean, you want to talk about the casting controversy? Do you guys remember the casting controversy and how everyone freaked out about this?
James Blonde.
Of all the things to freak out about, it was Blonde, and they totally overlooked the fact that he was kind of like he's like a character actor. He mostly played like a Weasley bad guy in Road to Perdition. He was mostly played
in my world. It was
Tomb
not
Raider.
that he was blonde so much. It was more about that this guy.
He was a bad guy. He clearly wasn't
not even like he's a character actor. It's like this guy's face has character.
He's not handsome.
He looks like a villain.
He's Weasley. He looks like a villain, and he's skinny because he was a tiny dude. If you look at Layer Cake and all his movies, he wasn't a big guy. When he showed up in this movie looking like he did, it was like with a short hair, because he had this floppy haircut and everything, and he shows up in this with the crew cut and absolutely jacked, like carved out of fucking stone.
Yeah.
And all it was like, oh shit, we were all wrong. This guy's gonna be great. Like, I just remember seeing him just being
kills it. He just fucking kills it in this
That's
movie.
what I remember. Like, this was actually the biggest deal for me. Like, seeing the movie at the time, I, like, personally, in my, like, the world of my life and my perceptions and everything, it was like they didn't pick a guy who looked like a generic good-looking guy. Was
They've
a
done that
really,
many times.
really big deal to me, because, like, in my world, it was very much like there's, like, especially in 2006, it's like there is a genericness about being good looking that you're an outsider on. And so, like, it was a huge deal for me personally to see this guy. And I thought he would not do it. I thought he would not be able to. I thought it wouldn't work. And I remember getting out of the movie being relieved that it worked for me, and being more relieved that it actually translated to, like, audiences.
The entire world was like, yes, we get it now. Sorry, our bad. Shouldn't have freaked out.
That happens a lot with casting. I remember people flipping out when they cast Heath Ledger as the Joker.
Yep.
And then people were blown away by that.
Any high-profile thing. I mean, it doesn't
Michael
always
Keaton
work,
as
and everyone
Batman.
always says, "Oh, we told you so," when it doesn't work. But it's like, how many times has everyone been wrong? And this is one of those times where really the world was freaking out about a blonde Bond. He was one of the least popular choices, I think.
Mm-hmm. It was down between him and who's Henry Cavill.
Yeah. And Henry Cavill was like 25, and everyone
22. He was
everyone
young,
rightly was like too young.
Which now they're saying he's a good front runner. Like now, once Craig is done,
and everyone's Clive Owen was a fan favorite. Which, if you've seen Croupier, he definitely had that polish, and he could have pulled it off.
I actually like Clive Owen, like early Clive Owen before he became like box office poison. I don't know what he is now.
But he would have been a fine James Bond. He would have been a great James Bond. It's just hard to imagine anyone being better than Craig was.
Didn't you say your favorite Clive Owen was Valerian? Did you say
for
that
the 10 minutes that he's in
on
that
record?
Yeah. Let's all take a moment to laugh at Matt. Was Children of Men came out this year, right?
Yeah.
So
did you want to go back over the list of
we
movies
could go
that
back
came out
over the
this
great
year?
movies that came out, but I just think it's interesting that Clive Owen
It's so
was
good.
was
this
making
year.
another amazing movie at the same time as
Yeah, it's the second one on the list.
So these are other top movies that came out in the same year, 2006.
The Departed, The Prestige, Pan's Labyrinth, Little Miss Sunshine, The Da Vinci Code, Cars, Blood Diamond, Babel, United 93, Borat, Letters to Iwo Jima, Inside Man, The Illusionist, Stranger Than Fiction, The Fountain, Little Children. I don't know what that one is. Pursuit of
Children
Happiness.
is good. It's really good.
I'm very sorry. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, Happy Feet, MI3, Mission Impossible 3, The Devil Wears
Mission
Prada,
Impossible 3, also great.
Yeah,
Holiday,
I like that one.
Dream
I'm glad you like
Girls.
that. A lot of people don't
Oh
like
my
that.
God.
Deja Vu,
We've got to do a Mission
A
Impossible
Prairie Home
podcast.
companion movie, The Hills Have
now you're
Eyes,
saying. Now you're saying.
Now you're just reading all the
Now you're
movies.
just listing all the movies. When
Flags
you
of Our
say-
Fathers, Perfume.
When
Wait,
you
is that
say
the
a-
sequel to Perfume?
When you say a Prairie Home companion movie,
X-Men
like
The
it's
Last
like
Stand.
it's anything but a late period
Whoa,
Altman
the
embarrassment.
Queen?
Okay.
I like the Queen.
What
But
about The Queen, Night at the
the Queen
Museum,
should have been much higher in this list.
Superman Returns,
Superman Returns.
Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift.
Tokyo Drift.
Tokyo Drift. That's like my favorite one, I think.
Ice Age, which one? The first one?
Ice Age: The Meltdown.
Oh,
A Scanner Darkly, the one with
Keanu
Keanu.
cartoon.
Rocky Balboa,
Whoa.
which was Rocky 6, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Miami Vice, which I
Wait,
do
you
think
skipped
was
Charlotte's Web.
I did. I skipped Charlotte's Web. An Inconvenient Truth.
You skipped The Lives of Others, which is also a great movie that you haven't seen.
I haven't gotten to The Lives of Others. That's where I'm at. Lives of Others, Miami Vice. Oh, I did skip Lives of Others.
Miami Vice is pretty solid, actually.
Aquila
Miami
and the
Vice
Bee. Miami
was a
Vice
terrible
is good.
movie when it came out, and somehow it's gotten better
Over time.
through just me not hating it as much.
Okay. All right. I skipped 3, and then Idiocracy, Marie Antoinette, and Open Season.
I can't
This has
believe
been every movie in 2006.
Okay, but like a lot of those were like must-see movies.
several of those were very good.
Several of those were movies you would say like you must see this to like really,
2007
Get
I
on-
think is even better.
get on the same page as most moviegoers.
It was a good year. It was a good year.
It was
And-
a very good
and
year.
even for Clive Owen, who was not James Bond, it was a good year.
He was in 12 of those movies.
But really, Children
He
of
was
Men.
the
has he
Volkswagen
been,
bus in
has he
Little
been
Miss
in a
Sunshine.
great movie since then?
Wait, was it 2005 or 2006 where Jude Law was literally in like every other movie that came out?
Well, we just said this one. I don't think it's
Well,
this year.
not
because
2006.
It must have been the year
'cause-
before that.
7
Because it was right around that time. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where are we at? Cold open?
we were still blowing Daniel Craig last night.
Oh, yeah.
No, it was a really big deal for me. Even like when I was watching it today, I was like getting really introspective and obviously trying to be analytical. And I was like, this is like a dangerous intersection, so I'm not gonna go down that road. And then I was just thinking about like, okay, just remember to like try to be funny for the podcast.
yeah. No, because it is easy to get swept up in just all the things that made this movie work so well, and
Yeah.
just from a
And-
sentimental aspect, this is like for like, I mean, GoldenEye was great, but then the rest of the Pierce Brosnan movies were hit or miss. So in our lifetime as sort of adults, it's kind of like this was the first time since GoldenEye that it was like, oh, a Bond movie could actually be relevant and exciting, and other people besides me care about it.
Right,
And, you know,
exactly.
And it was known that it was going to be a reboot, and it had been like a solid amount of time, especially that it's like post millennium, post 9/11, like all these like that major.
Well, see, this
the
is
world
why
had
I
changed
mentioned
a
this
lot.
in the last when we did Die Another Day. Like, I almost wish that Die Another Day was like in the previous century, because I feel like this movie is truly like the start of the next century of Bond.
You are
Oh,
kind of
for
hung
sure.
up on like a random year change.
It's really
thing.
weird. It's like
Yeah, there's some
it's
reason
like an
just-
OC.
We just invented this. So.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, especially like the way the numbers.
Time is just a construct, dude.
It's just a circle.
Exactly. I agree with Harris on this. This movie is not as good as he's saying it is, but it is really, really good.
It did like sort of reinvent the. I don't know. Like normally, I would be suspicious that it was benefiting from the low expectations of the audience, but it just hasn't. it's aged so well. Like, you still watch it today and you're like, yeah, this is still amazing. They nailed this.
Yeah, I'd say the only thing that like didn't age well is like, I don't know, sometimes when I look at haircuts in this movie, it dates it for me a little
like
bit.
The spiky, like,
yeah.
You remember hair gel being in your bathroom for a period of like 10 straight years, and do you have it in your bathroom now?
No,
me neither.
I got a lot of hair products in my bathroom. But.
Do you have gel? Do you have the kind of gel that makes
Harris,
it
I would
into,
say
like...
of the three of us, you have the most 2006 haircut.
Well, there you go.
Definitely. But I don't like have a haircut, so you're like...
Yeah, I mean, that's basically, between the two of you, I'm the one who actually grooms himself. So that's...
I shave, thank you very much. Not always for the podcast, but I do shave. I do shave. Just for curious fans.
So we're done with the cold open.
Are we? Cut to an hour
we
later.
We could
I
definitely
didn't
do
like
talking about
the barrel on the gun barrel.
Oh, me too.
It has so many spirals. It's like, what gun would ever shoot
like how much
that?
rifling do you need
Yeah.
on what's a pistol, essentially?
Maybe it's a silencer barrel?
There's no...
I think silencer barrels don't have...
They don't have rifling because they have vents to absorb the gas coming out. That's how a silencer works.
Guys, I'm just throwing ideas out there,
But
okay?
and I don't mean to shoot it down. Hey, there's no such thing as a bad idea except that one, which was wrong.
It's wrong.
But I had the same reaction. I thought the gun, like, I love that it linked to the gun barrel. I thought that was brilliant. But I hated the rifling on the gun barrel, and I also hated the
blood,
the CGI blood, the cartoon blood that came down. Although it did segue nice into the main titles and song.
The first animated titles.
I'm going to go ahead and let you guys run with this for a little while because I have an opinion about this.
Yeah. Okay. That it really bothered me. It really bothered me at the time, but it's a huge conflict for me because the technology that they had to make the digital graphics gave it such clean lines. Mm-hmm. It looked really good, but I remember being like, "There's no naked women in this," and I'm aware of it, and I maybe it's because I've seen every James Bond movie. I don't know if like mainstream audiences were aware of it, but I was super aware of there being no naked women in it.
As the patented like boob guy of the group,
boob expert,
I'm always pointing out like the nipples. I was very disappointed myself. It's quite a boobless movie.
I mean, the design of it looked cool for like a titles in general, but I was really distracted by that. But I'm sure some fans were like,
I think what helps is that the song is good, and
you like this one?
Yeah, I don't think it's terrible.
I think it's mediocre.
It's catchy, and I think they do a good job of like playing the riff throughout the movie. What?
I can't even contain myself. I'm laughing at how you guys think this whole thing is mediocre, and I'm going to be the one who just comes to the defense of every single thing on this entire episode. This song is amazing. Are you out of your mind?
This is Harris's name on a petition from that year to get that song a Grammy.
It should have won a Grammy. Chris Cornell pulls off like the tricky balance of making a Bond theme song that also rocks but sounds like a legit Bond song. You know, it incorporates the you've got like Live and Let Die or the View to a Kill song that is just a rock song that doesn't really sound like a Bond song. This one uses horns, and there's something very like grand and swelling about the chorus, and they incorporate the theme into, like you said, they incorporate the theme, not just the chorus, but also the beginning of the song into so many parts of the movie soundtrack. It just works so well.
You can tell that
it's catchy.
and David Arnold, the composer, had a good what's the word?
Rapport.
Rapport.
They sort of
synergy.
That's synergy. Yes, exactly. It worked so well. I love when the theme actually comes into the movie again and again, but especially when it's catchy, and it's just a really good song. I don't know if it makes like my best
Isn't it
ever.
just the same song as Like a Stone? I'll wait for you there, like a stone. Isn't it the same song?
I don't think it is.
I disagree.
Okay, sorry.
And I
it's all right. It's pretty good.
I acknowledge your boobless complaint, but I do think Daniel Kleinman's visuals, and it's Daniel Kleinman again who does almost all of the visuals since what's his name, Mo Binder left. But it's got a very it's almost got like a Saul Bass feel. Like there's movies like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and Catch Me If You Can, who have these animated sequences that are very primitive, basic animation, but they're really well done.
Catch Me If You Can, that was a good one. Yeah,
and those are more cartoony.
About
These are rotoscoped, but I enjoyed this. It sort of deviates from the Bond formula in a lot of ways, so maybe it's not a great Bond opening, but it is a great opening credits. Like independently viewed outside of the Bond universe, this would be still one of my favorite opening credits sequences. I don't know if it checks all the Bond boxes, but it's still incredible.
So then it ends, and we open up in where? Madagascar?
Right, yeah, Madagascar.
Yeah. And
mongoose snake.
Well, first before that, there's another scene.
Well, there's a Uganda warlord backstory, which is
that's
the least
Uganda.
interesting part of this film. Although it's Lashif's primary motivator, so it gets things off to that start.
Yeah, there's something going on here with Lashif and like the whole, like you said, the Uganda guy and the money. Like pretty much whenever like this stuff is brought up, it's a little confusing at first. Like I've seen this movie like over 10 times, so now I understand. But I remember the first time being like, "What the hell's going on?" Like I don't understand, but I don't care that I don't understand.
I know what the purpose of the scene is.
Yeah.
Without this scene, Lashif would look more like a chump overall. Mm-hmm. And now we're going to pause a few moments for a word from our sponsor, Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles.
Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. Come on down to Roscoe's. Get your chicken, get your waffles. It's Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles. You can eat both. On Pico.
On Pico.
Colin had just made the point about the Ugandans. Colin, you got anything you want to?
It's just that if they don't take time to build up the character of Lashif, he ends up looking bad. I mean, we saw in the 60s Casino Royale that if we only see Lashif at the casino table, he could come off as a silly magician.
Yeah, that was my big complaint with this movie is that Lashif didn't do enough magic tricks.
Yeah.
I saw, he did that thing with his eye. Yeah. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. I saw that they had a few women in the room at the time of the poker game, and he didn't have any of them lay down on the table and then levitate them.
That was a real failing of this. And I will admit that is the one place where this movie falls short. Not enough Lashif doing magic tricks. Yeah. My real complaint is that he wasn't Orson Welles. So it's just like Mads Mikkelsen is fine and everything, but he's no Orson Welles.
And they did, what's that like plot thing in movies when there's like too much stuff? They like give you too many things.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't know.
Like
the
they gave him what's
the
called?
inhaler.
The inhaler and the bloody eye. Like okay, we get it.
And he's human calculator, and it's like how many gags can you?
That stuff
saddle
will be
this
okay,
guy with?
but the part where Bond puts the bug in the inhaler, that's unnecessary because it kind of doesn't make sense.
Yeah, he knows that this guy's a secret agent. Doesn't he have like? He should have one of his henchmen that are just like, watch everything that he does and make sure he doesn't fuck with my shit. And that's the only rule.
And also, like, the inhaler fits in his pocket. Why is it not in his pocket?
Why does he leave it there? Yeah.
And also, if he left it there and Bond put the bug in the inhaler so that he would know which room was Lashif's, didn't he leave it there and not take it back to his room?
All good points. And also, why was Bond the most suspicious guy who already knows is the spy who's out to get him?
Acting hella suspicious the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. And yet Mathis, who is the guy who supposedly is like Bond's ally who he doesn't maybe know about, why isn't he the one doing it?
Yeah.
I mean, this would be a perfect Mathis job. So good point there. I do think the Ugandans were like part of the fleshing out his backstory a little bit and just giving him some motivation, but...
And it's just a reason to have the like stairwell fight.
Exactly. It's mostly an excuse to hang that stairwell fight in there. But the one thing they did that was smart about it was introduce that early. First scene right after the credits, they get that out of the way.
Introduce the villain.
It does two things. It introduces Lashif, who we wouldn't otherwise see until much later in the movie. It would be like the Renard thing.
He's
where
also
he doesn't even come into like the last third of the movie or whatever.
Lashif also is technically a side villain to the greater villainy of Spectre.
Right, but you don't know that.
We don't know that, and we won't know it until after the movie's over. So we have to build him up for us to care.
And if you want to talk about the real failing of this movie. It's kind of built in, but I don't think that's a failing. I think they work around it really well. But I think that's built into the plot of the movie. But this movie isn't about the bad guy. It's one of the few Bond movies that's not about the bad guy. It's about Bond.
But I think that's why they said we have to have this scene, because this villain has to mean something, because we know after knowing the story that he's technically a side villain.
Yeah,
right.
I was like, doing research, and it's weird to think that. So the whole lawsuit and like rights thing with Spectre and like Thunderball and all that stuff didn't come to an ending, or like they didn't gain the rights to that stuff until a few years like into the Craig era. So I wonder what the Craig movies like arc would have been had they already had the rights to Spectre and everything and Blofeld or whatever at this movie, because it's very clear upon watching it now, like there's so much setup for the organization, and like this is clearly a jumping off point for like a larger arc.
And they didn't have it for Quantum, did they? Because I feel like Quantum was another front company, like that.
Well, no, Quantum is their excuse because they didn't have Spectre,
right?
So
Exactly.
they had to come up with
so
something
they
else.
actually had to delay it twice.
Yeah.
Before revealing that this was the mastermind thing all. But you could see they're building at it right from square one. So I guess they would have just kept on having these fake Drax type corporations that.
Well, I think what it was that this movie was always going to lead into Quantum of Solace, and that was going to be like the end of this arc. That's why Skyfall is its own thing. It has nothing to do with these two movies. Then they got the rights to it, and they were like, well, shit, now we can make a Spectre movie.
Yeah.
But we already like did the organization thing with Quantum, and then
So
they're
just
like,
bring Mr. White
well,
back.
let's just bring Mr. White back. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That and then all those times he was saying organization, you thought he was talking about Quantum. He wasn't. He was talking about a bigger organization.
It's like they retconned the whole thing.
Yeah. Which is dumb. But whatever. We'll get to that.
It works.
Okay.
So then we jump into the greatest chase in Bond history. One of the very few foot chases, because usually he does car chases and stuff. I don't remember him having another foot chase. Certainly not this.
He drives the
elaborate,
bulldozer in it.
Well, he's not without the one vehicle there, but yeah, it's
I
mostly.
think I had
mostly a foot
heard
chase.
that the last foot chase was like in From Russia with Love, I think, or one of those old movies.
I don't actually remember any of them, but this is certainly the best.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, Bond movies have incorporated like too many hip things that are currently popular, and they haven't aged well.
Like the body.
Kite surfing comes to mind.
I was gonna say the bodies exhibit. Which,
Well, yeah, sure. But like kite surfing comes to mind as like a thing that's like, hey, this one, like it does the parkour and Texas Hold'em.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And honestly, they were at their height of the popularity. Parkour,
Yep,
there had been a couple of French movies that had used it in action movies.
certainly America's first foray.
Texas Hold'em had a few years where they were being aired on ESPN. The World Series of Poker was,
I think after
on
this
TV.
movie, it became a bigger.
But it was already big before this.
It was big before this.
It had cultural cachet, and yet they are two of the best things about this movie. They totally still work, this many years later. So it's kind of, I don't know if it's dumb
when I lived
luck
in
or if
Lubbock,
it's
the
just-
World Series of Poker was like a huge deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
to me
amazing.
and people I knew then.
It's amazing how different, like how fresh this movie is compared to the previous movie.
Right.
Like they just did a total 180 and like did a great job.
I mean, just the CGI and all the silly, like they just made a lot of silly decisions in the previous one, and this one they made something kind of timeless. Even though you would think that like parkour and worlds, and maybe we're too close to it. Maybe 50 years from now, somebody will be like, parkour, what a stupid 2000s thing to do.
But what I like about it is like it's parkour, but it's not parkour done like over the top. It's,
Right.
Like the moves that he does.
It's very practical.
Yeah. It's done very well.
Well, in boxing, they say that like contrasting styles make for good fights, and that's kind of what this chase is. We have like the slippery, elusive guy who just moves with the grace and fluidity of a cat, and then we've got like this Bond who is a new kind of Bond. He is very much the blunt instrument that M calls him, and he just through brute strength and sheer force of will, he is keeping up with this man who should be able to run circles around him through this obstacle course, and it's like it is as like the greatest single moment of that is the one that you said earlier, where the guy slips through this transom window at the top of this wall, which it doesn't even make sense why that's there or whatever. But this guy does this athletic slip through this tiny window at the top of a wall, and Bond just smashes through the sheetrock, and it's like such a great yes, this is exactly what it is. It's a guy who can just move fluidly through any obstacle, and a guy who just bashes through whatever with his fucking forehead if he needs
and
to.
he does the thing I also love when he jumps into the elevator shaft and he bounces off the wall onto the lower floor, and then Bond just
runs farther down to where there is a floor. He doesn't have to go through the elevator. He just slides to a hole in the floor.
Through a hole in the floor. Yeah.
Yep.
What's cool about it is okay, so the gag here is that this guy is graceful and very limber and can do all these cool things, and that Bond is supposed to be he's not up to snuff, and
he's an agent. He's a solid agent, but he is not.
He's not a super athlete.
He's not a super athlete. Yeah, but they take it another step, and it's what they're showing you is not that he's behind. It's that he's doing essentially the same thing, but in a different way, and his way is just as good as this other guy.
This guy's climbing down things, and Bond hops onto a machine and knows just the thing to hit to make it depressurize and lower the scissor lift.
By the way, that could snap his neck. In real life. If you depressurize the scissor lift, it drops at the rate of just falling that far. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure, I guess.
Unless you depressurize,
you're bringing a lot of
at
reality
a
into this
rate.
thing. I mean,
okay,
also
right,
dropping in
I'm
a
sorry.
Well, all the air didn't come out in one shot.
It kind of looks like it does.
It whistles out. It's in a little. It's
it makes it sound.
Okay, all right. Also, if you were to attempt this at home, keep in mind that if you depressurize the scissor lift, it could result in you falling just as fast as if you fell that far.
I'm going to just point out that I don't think this is our responsibility, but yes, for now and in the past and in the future, if we talk about Bond stunts here on the podcast, do not try them at home. They will almost all certainly get you killed.
I do think you know what I was going to say, and I'm sorry it's going to take us off of topic a little bit though. The popularity of parkour as a result of this and its time period and everything, and then social media combined, is a trajectory that resulted in people throwing chairs out of their balconies and getting arrested for it. You know what I mean?
I missed the chair balcony arrest.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't.
That's a thing. People, because so many people will just put videos of them doing whatever on the internet.
Oh.
Including what a lot of parkour people do now is walking on the edges of buildings where they could obviously die.
I mean, Russians are insane, and they will put anything online of them balancing on the edges.
But there was
buildings
some girl who lives in a 15th story apartment complex, and she just threw a chair out of her balcony because that's funny for Snapchat or whatever. But then it it could have killed 20 people or whatever.
I don't think people should throw furniture out of high places. I do, however.
I just think it's interesting that we're thinking about the height of popularity of parkour and how modern this one is, and then our technology is pushing so hard and forward, and we're getting into this crazy era that we're in now of social media and just tons of, and the Twitterverse and all of this shit, and it's just.
Well, listen, I'm not going to follow
we could have
you
never
on Instagram or Twitter, but I would like to encourage anyone who wants to jump from balcony to balcony at a high apartment building to go ahead and do that. That shit is cool, okay? It looks cool. It would be fun as hell if you can pull it off. Don't die, but I mean, I think totally worth it.
I was just
don't just throw shit off balconies though. That's stupid.
Yeah, that's dumb as hell, right?
Yeah,
but
do athletic, impressive shit though.
Right,
I'm all about that.
Right. But yeah, isn't it crazy thinking about this feels the James Bond that brought us into the now James Bond, and it wasn't that long ago, but it still feels there's been so much that has happened between then and now. You know what I mean?
YouTube.
And yes, YouTube particularly, but also in general.
Oh, okay.
All right, so the next scene is...
Matt, you told me before we started that we should go on tangents and we should keep going
That
on
was
them.
certainly a tangent.
I love the
Colin
tangent.
is taking instruction. The next scene is a great M scene.
Yeah.
Where she's got a great, it's another, they've done such a good job with Judi Dench, and they say, the producers talk about this in some of the behind the scenes stuff of how it doesn't make any sense. They're it doesn't make any sense that M is back as Judi Dench. They should have rebooted everyone else. They should have rebooted her. It's crazy that they kept her, but they were when Judi Dench says, yes, I'll continue doing it, you don't say no to Judi Dench. She's been nailing it. She's the best M easily that we've ever had.
Yeah.
And
M for me in the old movies was always like a totally forgettable and like throwaway character. It could be anyone. But then once she came aboard, it was like, oh.
And it's largely the writing. They still give her really good lines. Like in this one, she has the thing that when he gets caught in the embassy, so the end of the chase is that he follows this guy into the embassy and basically murders him and blows up the embassy and gets caught on camera doing it. And she says, what's the line? In my day, if an agent did something that stupid, they'd have the decency they have the good sense to defect. It's like a great line. And then she's continued to, and then she has
I
the
miss
great
the
line
Cold
of,
War is what she says.
Right, I miss the Cold War. And then later she's like, I don't know if this is something that a blunt instrument like you can comprehend. It's just a standard, great repartee with Bond and just exasperation at him in a very paternal way.
They're kind of going back to the old days of making it really simple of like, he's just kind of a pain in the ass, but M likes him anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it's funny because the old M's always had this paternal relationship with Bond, and they brought her in, and she still has this kind of, it's not a maternal relationship, it's a paternal, disapproving, father figure relationship that she has with them, but she gives as good as she gets as always, and she's just such a great actress to see her deliver these lines. It was a smart move to just keep her on board because she's just as good with Craig as she was with Brosnan.
Well, while we're kind of talking about the dialogue in this movie, I do think she has the best dialogue. This movie for a modern Bond movie, and just coming off, like, I thought the dialogue in the Pierce Brosnan movies was fine, but like this movie in particular, I don't know what it is, but there's some really cringeworthy lines. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I don't. Boys with Toys is always like my most cringeworthy modern Bond line that just gets repeated.
That's a good
You
one.
just missed there's not enough puns in this.
Yeah, that is a problem. Frankly, I would like to say, yes, that is a problem.
I don't miss them. I mean, really, the last couple of Brosnan ones were like every single line he said had to be some kind of double entendre. I like that this is back to just, hey, you can occasionally just say clever, funny things.
This movie has a lot of lines where I'm watching it and I say to myself, people don't talk like that. It's a lot of the
Right.
dialogue between him and Vesper.
Their first scene, it's like they're
I love that.
They're both like psychoanalyzing each other with like a very in-depth breakdown.
It's
and
called
like,
verbally sparring, and yes, nobody does that in real life. Nobody also does any of the shit
I
in real
actually
life.
don't mind that scene. I
Really?
think that's their best dialogue. Yeah, it's later on, like in the shower together,
Oh yeah, that
and then
was weird.
and then in the hospital, or like right when he's recovering, and he's like, "Whatever I am, I'm yours."
Oh,
or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh my god,
Well, okay.
Yeah, that I
What
kind
about
of
the
agree
fact
with.
that? What about the fact that
Reluctantly.
like?
my armor, you've pierced my armor.
What about the
or
fact
whatever.
that
But I
like,
mean, I think a big part of that was just them trying to show how vulnerable that this was not like
It worked.
that this was
I mean, it
special,
worked.
that this was not just the normal Bond thing where he sort of falls for some chick for the movie and then he's going to be over the next time. This was like, this is different.
But
He's-
why though? See, did you not notice that like because the fact that she has to die and it has to be really tragic, that he has to fall in love with her really, really hard without knowing anything?
Yeah. She even says, he's like, "I love you," and she's like, "You love me?"
But I mean, isn't that kind of this?
I get that I'm hot, but you love me.
Isn't that kind of this Bond character though? That he is,
Yeah,
he's not old enough to know
See,
better.
that's the thing is like that's not good for the movie to do that, but I accepted it because I was like, I need Bond to like blindly be wanting to like get down with some love shit and like really be like, rushing into like, being intimate with women because that's part of the whole Bond trope thing.
Well, 'cause-
and this movie is so serious and so trying to like reboot and reinvent and like be fresh and everything. And I was like, I remember watching it at the time and being like, this needs to check certain boxes for me because I'm like the person I know who's seen every Bond.
I don't know that it's trying to reinvent. It's trying to establish a character that we already know where he turns out.
I'm not
but this is
saying
sort of
it
this is
didn't-
how he got there, which I think is interesting.
I'm not saying it didn't do a good job. I am kind of asking you to explore the idea that it might not have done as good a job as you seem to think it did.
Well, no, but I think you're judging it by different goals than what it was. Like don't weigh the movie based on what you wish it was, which is not a reboot of James Bond or not an origin story. Judge it based on the fact that they said, hey, we're going to do an origin story of James Bond, and a big part of his origin is why does he treat women like this? Why is he so,
But for me, this movie is in some ways a better movie it is than a Bond movie. You know, like it's maybe the best standalone movie of the Bond series, but as part of the series, I don't get some of the things that I'm come accustomed to getting
I
out
could
of
rebut this, but
Well,
Matt, a
let's-
word in edgewise.
Yes, I was going to say, let's talk about the things that this movie doesn't have and whether or not we can live without them.
Yeah.
So, like, what's your
Spoiler
first?
alert, I can.
Okay, so if you look at the fact that besides the fact that I want James Bond to fall in love with some chick just because, you know, he feels like it, it makes no damn sense that he is in love with her after like the things we've seen happen, other than the fact that they've both been traumatized. But speaking to your dialogue point, if that was the case, they would talk in the dialogue about how they've both been traumatized, and that's why they're
They
in
have
love.
one scene in the shower where he hugs her and consoles her.
And why is she so traumatized? Because her backstory is that she is a financial person and she saw a murder, right?
Yeah.
But I think her greater trauma is the one that we don't know till the end, which is that she is betraying everyone that she knows and who trusts her all this time, and she doesn't want to, but she is forced to do something that is tearing her up inside, and she can't even tell him. And I think they do talk about really why he's the way he is, because she nails it. Like, he actually is the one who does it in that train scene where he says, "Oh, I'm guessing you're an orphan because when I mentioned the parents thing, you didn't say anything," and she spins it right back on him, and it's like, no, you're the orphan. And she says M has a way of recruiting damaged young men and convincing them that the fight for queen and country is the only thing that's important to them, which is basically like she's psychoanalyzing the Bond character and then giving him a way out, saying like, hey, we could be in love, we could run off together, you don't have to do, giving him for the first time in his life since his parents died, the option of having some other thing to do besides.
But she never says that. He says we're gonna do that, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we could, I guess."
right. Yeah, no, I get
Which is awkward.
I do get what you're saying. I don't think
Then he
that
tells her
it's such a
she
leap.
needs to get a regular job. Do you remember that part?
Yeah.
He's like, we could
Right.
run away together, but I don't know how to do shit. So you're going to have to, like, bag groceries or something.
I have no marketable skills. Really, what he was saying was, I'm gonna have to bag groceries, or you can just be a high-priced accountant somewhere. So maybe that.
Okay. Hypothetically, let's say you're in a relationship with a James Bond type, and you realize that they want out, and then you realize that one of you does have to get a real job, and then they say that to you. Aren't you immediately thinking like, oh, I do have to get a real job, because if I try to make this other person go into the workforce again, they're going to fail and start killing people?
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of the movie where it's like James Bond 10 years after leaving the service because he fell in love with some woman, and she's bringing home the bacon, and he's playing video games. He's like overweight.
What's he doing with his life if he's not
overweight.
working?
He's got nothing to do. He's like, hey, babe, what's up?
I built this sweet chair. She looks
Yeah,
at it.
yeah.
It looks horrendous.
Yeah, he's like, oh,
Yeah,
you
I'm thinking of getting into carpentry.
Oh, you want me to start working again? And then he just starts staring at his gun. And then she's like, oh, God, no.
He's got a beer gut.
Oh, babe, I would totally go out to the movies with you, but my parkour club's running around the city later, so I'm just going to do that.
They aren't.
But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's not like the romance angle of this isn't totally fleshed out. At the same time,
And I agree with Matt that the dialogue is part of that problem.
I don't think the dialogue is a bigger part of the problem. It does get a little heavy-handed at the end. I think the bigger part of the problem is that you are not getting the established James Bond. You're getting the start of that James Bond character that
I'm
you
going to
like.
try to find some cheesy dialogue. But for now, do we want to run through the plot? We're kind of like
Oh, yeah, we didn't
yeah,
even do
we're
that.
going through every
This
scene.
one also is not funny.
That's your other complaint. Is that,
It's
yeah, I don't look at that as a complaint. It's got a couple
No,
of
no,
jokes.
it's
got
good.
a couple
You
of
know,
good
it's
lines.
good or
It's
whatever,
not,
but
you
it's
don't
not
laugh
funny.
about it, but it's.
All right. Are you ready?
Okay.
I think I have the song queued up. I hate SoundCloud. Here we go. Nope. It's playing an advertisement.
Roscoe's Chicken and Waffle.
We are not advertising Roscoe's. They screwed up my order.
I can't skip this.
I blame Uber Eats.
It's a 40-second ad. Are you fucking kidding me? This is all being cut.
40 seconds? Why not
It's-
30? Why not a minute?
It started at 40 and it's counting down. It's at 27. Yeah, we need that 40-second Jeep spot. For SoundCloud, in between songs that you can't skip.
Why is it 40 seconds, though? Why is it not a minute or 30 seconds?
Because that's the amount of time that we have assessed that kids will listen before turning off the app.
Oh, I would turn it off. If it's more than 5, I'm like, fuck it. It's not worth it. Whatever I was going to do on this app is not worth whatever this is.
I would have turned it off after 1 second to go buy a Jeep.
Now, can I go back to the previous song? Yes. Oh, I hate SoundCloud so much. All right, ready?
Yeah. Should
Hold
I start?
on, I'll start it over. Ready?
All right. So we start, as we talked about, James Bond, he gets his first 2 kills because he has to. He gets the 00 status. We see Lashif. He's in Africa. He's banking for terrorists. He's like, hey, you're bad guys. I'm going to be your banker. Then we go back to Bond, and he's like, I'm at this mongoose fight, and I've got to, get this bad guy because he makes bombs. He chases the bad guy. He gets him. He's like, oh, he's got a text message about ellipsis. I don't know what that means, but I'm going to track down the trail. Breaks into M's office to get info, and he's like, I did it. And she's like, stop being bad. And he's like, I'm going to go out there. She's like, you take it easy. And then he goes out there. He goes and finds this guy in the Bahamas who knows about the ellipsis. He beats him at poker, and then he has sex with his wife. And then and he steals his car. And then then the wife dies, and he finds out that guy's talking to Lashif. So then he finds out Lashif's a bad guy, and he's got to beat him at poker at a big game in Montenegro. And they send him a banker, and it's a hot woman. And she's like, hi, I'm beautiful and hot, and I'm the banker, and I'm controlling how much money you get for the poker game. They play the poker game. He loses the first thing, and then he's like, give me more money. And she's like, no. And in between, he kills a guy, and he's like, you should let me have more money. And she's like, your ego is blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, Felix Leiter's here. He's going to give me $5 million to win this fucking game. Then he beats Lashif. Lashif captures both of them. Lashif beats the shit out of his nutsack. And then he's like, oh, fuck, I'm fucked up. And then he turns up in the hospital, and he's like, there's a betrayer. His name's Mathis. And the hot woman's there, and she's like, I got away, and we're going to all be better now. And then he's like, oh, wait, we got to go, oh, Lashif dies. Lashif gets killed in the nutsack beating part. And then he's like, oh, I got to investigate. Oh, no, fuck. And then he's like, we're going to run away together, me and you, the banker. And she's like, okay, that's good. And then they're in Venice, and she goes to give all the money to some evil guy. And he's like, oh, fuck, they're all evil. And then he chases down Mr. White and kills him. And then Mr. White was one of the evil guys. And then he's like, oh, I'm James Bond. And then movie over.
It's no wonder you didn't like this movie. You only remembered like half of it. Can't believe
I just said all of it.
Can't believe you forgot the airport scene. That whole thing.
I know why
That
you
was
forgot
in
it,
there.
because that's the most forgettable part of this whole
Are
movie.
you kidding me? Oh,
It's fine. It's not bad, but
I mean, it is more action.
It's a great action. I feel like we didn't watch the same movie.
it's fine. It's good. It's just for me, not the part of this movie that is.
You didn't think
memorable.
that chase was amazing? I thought that chase at the airport was great. And the gag with the guy.
You know what it is for me, and this is a nitpicky thing. I don't like the way it's shot. It's like they tint everything blue, and it just to me looks the most digital or something. I don't know.
In Miami? Oh, yeah, it's all dark. And
But it was.
I just don't like the aesthetic of it.
Well, I guess
I do like the part
taste,
when
but-
the car, he's driving, holding onto the side of the truck that the guy's driving, and he tries to get a truck coming the other way to hit him, and instead he leaps off and rolls in front
that
of
was
the
a
other
risky
thing.
move.
Yeah,
He could have got his head squeezed.
It's amazing. I love the stair car jump onto the truck at the beginning of that. I love the whole sequence with Bond jumping off and spinning the truck around, and the truck hits the bags, and the truck hits the bus, and
and then the plane, the jet, blows the
cops
police
away,
yeah.
and then the whole fight when he flips into the window and they fight in the cab, and they have this whole back and forth fight where Bond falls out, and then the guy almost jumps out, and then and they set that thing up perfectly where he's got the detonator that's clipped to the underside of the truck, and you get it all from 3 shots. One of Bond seeing the thing that clipped on the other side, and then one of him grabbing the back of the guy's shorts, but you don't see what happens until the end. It's such come on, that's really clever. And Craig sells it too when the truck comes screeching to a halt. There's he gives 2 of the greatest single just wordless Bond looks. One is when the truck comes screeching to a halt before it hits the thing, and he's like, he's got this like holy shit I survived look on his face, and then the other one is when they're handcuffing him and they've got him leaned over the police car,
and
the guy blows himself up and he's got this tiny little smile of like, yeah, fuck you. Oh, that whole sequence is amazing. It's one of the best like car chase fight things, and it's got all practical stunts which all look really good. Him running up the stair car and jumping onto the thing and falling off and then catching up to it again. It's a great sequence.
Yeah, it's weird because everything you said sounds good, and it is good. Ostensibly, it is a good scene.
I can't believe how many shitty Bond movies you've liked, and you're.
But I think like this movie's 2.5 hours long. If you could like streamline it a little bit, you could lose this whole sequence.
I would have watched this movie a second time after I finished watching it. I feel like this movie should have been 5 hours long. It would have been perfect.
But like even really, really good movies, when they're really long, there is that thing of like, oh, you should watch this. It's really good, but also it's super long. Like, you know, like even The Godfather is like that. It's like, it's The Godfather. Everyone has to watch it. It's like one of the best, you know, but like, you know, take a whole afternoon.
Put upon. Oh my God, I gotta watch a great movie. What a chore.
I'm a little confused about your attitude though. I feel like you didn't expect us to show up to this podcast meeting because you expected us to just die after seeing this movie because there's nothing else left after.
The way the shitty Bond movies blow your mind, I thought that maybe your head would have exploded watching a good one. I don't know.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie.
I don't know how this works. I don't understand.
I'm not gonna lie. Before I put the DVD of this movie in, I thought to myself, should I watch Moonraker again?
Maybe.
Hey,
I looked at the disc. I was like, looks good.
What if you just played like just a YouTube clip of Roger Moore in a clown outfit running around like a maniac in the background while you watch Casino Royale? Would that make it a better movie if you just had that something really stupid just to go with it? It's like, oh, hey, it's stupid and funny. That's just what this movie's missing. It's a little more dumb and funny.
You know, I don't think that would work, but I can't prove it without doing it.
I think you should try it. I think we should all try that. I think it's interesting. We got a couple of common Bond tropes at the beginning. One is him getting benched for screwing up and being like, okay, I'm going on vacation, and then actually continuing to do the thing. And the other is the thing with the valet at the Ocean Club where he
pretends to be the valet?
Well, yeah, where some asshole throws him his keys and he goes and he crashes the guy's car and you think he's just being dickish, but it's actually part of a bigger scheme to break into the security office and do something.
That was great. That
happens a lot of times in Bond movies. I feel like where you're just like, oh, he's just being a dick because he's just giving some person some karma, but it's actually part of some bigger, more clever plan.
Hold up, I have a bone to pick with that scene though. He is getting a little satisfaction from it. Just because these guys
absolutely
thought he was the valet. I mean, first of all, he's dressed like a fucking valet. Like, I would think he's the valet, too.
He's well-dressed for a valet, but...
And then, he moves the car, he crashes it. That's one thing. But then when he's in the security office, he looks at the video of them, like, getting hassled by the cops or whatever, and he smiles, and he's like, yeah, fuck you guys.
My biggest complaint with that thing, because I think that all works fine for me. I love that. But I think my biggest complaint is that it's a real stretch that he knows when this guy got a call from Lashif, and in seconds of scanning the videotape from this club, he's like, oh, it's this guy. He was on camera answering his phone at that exact moment. It's
conveniently.
Like, really?
Yeah.
How many, like, you did this in the time it took the guys to run out of the security office and investigate this stuff and before they came back?
From jump, that whole plan works perfectly to how it could, like, that whole plan works best possible of the beginning of the plan.
Which
remember, the beginning of the plan is, all right, I'm here. Now I'm going to pretend to tie my shoe for a good minute and a half and
see where the security cameras
See
where the security cameras are, yeah. Well, that's every Bond plan. They all work out perfectly when they're supposed to and not when they're not
from the moment someone throws him some keys, that hatches a plan that gets him way deep into a criminal organization.
Do you think he was really just tying his shoes and like didn't know?
No, I think he was pretending to tie his shoes.
No, it was all intentional.
But what I think is funny is imagining that this is
how long would he have stayed there tying his shoes?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a known thing,
and
in spycraft. Whenever you need to, you can just pretend to tie your shoes and case the joint, right? So like that's a known thing.
And if anybody thinks you look suspicious tying your shoes, just stick your tongue out like you're concentrating really hard, and people tend to leave you like, oh.
Yeah. But downside,
and just start muttering to yourself. Rabbit goes out of the hole around the tree.
Swoop it.
But downside, you stay crouched outside a building in broad daylight for way too long.
Yeah.
And you look stupid.
definitely. Well, I mean, the alternative, Colin, is that he goes through some much more elaborate plan, and this movie is 15 minutes longer. So I think we should just agree that this was brilliant and move on.
What is also
I do like this part,
does he work almost like a police officer? Like, could he have gone into the security office and been like, "Hey, I'm a special agent. Like, I need to see your."
Well, he's
No,
in theory
because
he's undercover.
The,
but
the fewer people that know
What's going on?
the fewer people knowing less about you is like the priority.
He only
Even
tells
though he's
everyone his
James
fucking
Bond.
name everywhere he goes.
he walks it over. James Bond of the Secret Service, the British Secret Service, on Her
He answers the phone
Majesty's
several
Secret
times
Service.
when he's like, "This is Bond here," like James Bond.
I do like how when he checks into the Casino Royale, or the hotel near the casino, he gives his actual name to piss off Vesper, but then he explains it, like why he's doing it, and he's like, it's sort of like hanging a lantern on the whole recurring thing of why does he always just introduce himself everywhere he goes if he's supposed to be a secret agent. They sort of explain it a little bit here, like his rationale behind it.
And that's like in some cases that's an argument. That's something we've already said on this podcast, where it was like, why one of you saying, why does he always do this? And it's
in
this
being
situation,
right.
they all know he's James Bond. Anyway.
This being the smart James Bond movie, they explain it a little bit. Also, so as we're talking about the Ocean Club, I just want to point out that when he seduces this, first of all, we got a real beefcake shot of him coming out of the water in his, I didn't realize this, his little
mantis,
his little tiny
mantis.
Yeah, his little mantis. It's La Perla, which is a very popular women's underwear maker that have made his bathing suit, and it figures. But he comes out and it's like this beefcake shot of him coming out in the water, seduces this guy's wife, and it's this like sort of jerk guy that is clearly this cartoon asshole. But the move with the car, where he wins the guy's car in a poker game, and she comes out thinking it's her husband's car, and then he offers her a ride home, and she's like, no, I'm not even that cruel, even though I don't love my husband. And he's like, well, why don't we go back to my place? I live close by. And then they get in the car, and he speeds around a traffic circle at top speed and screeches to a halt where you could actually see her head jerk forward when he stops, and gets out, and she laughs and thinks it's charming, which I'm very sorry. If a maniac did that in real life, that woman would be calling an Uber as she got out of the car and be like, you know what? I got a really early morning. I'm going to have to hit the road.
I
disagree. It's funny, yeah.
No, there is nothing funny about that. It is insane that his for this gag, he's trying to be.
It's insane if you take it on a real road into a real dangerous situation and actually drive it like that then.
But
then come back.
No, but for the purposes of
go in a circle around
instead
no
of just
traffic.
saying, I live here, come onto my place.
It's clever. It's funny.
It's not clever. It's a joke that would not work in any circumstances.
In a movie that isn't funny enough, it is one of the few almost laughs.
It is not comfortable to speed around a traffic circle
I
at top
think I
speed
can
and
pull
then
that
jerk
joke
to a
off.
halt.
I think if I did that joke,
I could definitely pull it off in my Prius, which could never go that
yeah.
fast.
Come on, I live close by, and
I
then she
gotta
gets in
be
the car,
honest.
and you drive in a literal 2-second circle
Yeah.
and come to the same spot.
It has a circle
I
drive
don't
in front
buy
of the
that. No-
hotel. They're
no-
asking
yeah.
for
No
it.
woman in the world
doesn't-
wants to
any
be,
other
wants
shape
to be
doesn't
violently
She's
work.
not
jerked to
asking
a halt
for it.
there.
The hotel's asking for it.
Harris, if their driveway was perhaps square shaped and he had to make like lots of
Hairpin
turns,
turns, yeah.
yeah,
What if he was drifting?
That's a different story.
That'd been
Too
better.
long,
or
it
worse?
wouldn't
different
work.
story.
Yeah.
But because it's a circle, it works.
Also-
Triangle.
Why
forget
was
it.
there no drifting in this? This is the same year as Tokyo Drift. Do we have to wait?
Well, I
until
think
the
we have
next
to wait till the Tokyo Drift
Okay.
effect comes into
Right,
all
the
the
next
other
movie
stuff.
has tons of drifting.
Also, is staying at the Ocean Club a good thing for her? Because like, even if she's unhappy in her marriage, is she really gonna fuck randos at the club next door to her house? That seems like that would be like, oh, you stay here? I'm sorry, we're gonna have to go to like a motel or
I
something.
think it's one of the few options she has, actually.
I guess. I think that's a little suspicious, but
I mean, she's obviously allowed to ride her horse on the beach.
but her husband
I don't
looks
think she's allowed to
undisapprovingly about
leave the
that.
mansion a lot.
That
Otherwise,
always gets a laugh out of me for some reason. That shot of her riding the horse.
Yeah,
I don't
what
know
the fuck? Because like,
why.
Well, she has really great form, which is the same thing as like fucking. It's like like her horse riding form is very like, shoulders back and pelvis thrusting forward, which is how you're supposed to ride a horse, and yet it looks very like she's intentionally just being like, hey, check this out. Look how right this is.
it also builds up the character of this like guy who's living his extremely rich lifestyle in the Bahamas. Like when there are some very poor people in the Bahamas also, and she's parading
And
around
she's got
on a horse.
She's got a horse
in
on
front
the
of
beach,
them.
and the black kids are running behind
Little
her,
black
like,
kids
grinning
run
and
behind
being
her,
like,
grinning. Exactly, yeah.
Yay, beautiful white lady.
The one kid gives her a look like, oh man, she's the greatest.
Oh man,
She is looking very beautiful in the scene.
yeah.
I had heard on the interwebs that she had some sort of injury or sickness or something and almost opted out of that horse riding scene. But then she was like, no, I will do it because I know how these things go. And this will be the moment, my Bond girl moment that I'll.
Yeah. Well, they were going to get a
remember
stunt double, and she was like,
Yeah.
No, I'm going to gut it out.
Yeah. And she did it. So she's in excruciating pain while she's riding that horse.
Well, it's good to know. She's a good actress then.
Yeah.
Yeah. What has she done since this movie?
Not a lot. Actually, we could find
Some
out.
notes?
We could find out her name. Her name is
Well, while he's looking that up.
Caterina Marino, an Italian actress who has surprisingly not worked more.
Well,
I liked her
maybe
a
she's
lot.
a model or something.
I
Memorable
really liked
intro
her
and
at the
death.
time too. I was like, when in 2006, I was like, oh my god.
The
look
scene
at
of
that.
them making out on the floor always gets me. I'm always like, that's kind of like that sticks in my memory.
What do you
of
mean
them.
gets you?
Like just I always
You're like into it?
You want a girl to do that to you?
No, I'm just always like that sticks out as like a memorable moment in this movie for weird reasons of them just it's just like they've got a bed there. They're
You
in the
saying
room.
that gets me could have meant a lot of things.
Yeah.
At that.
Well, that's
at this-
why I clarified that it like sticks with me. It's
I know.
it's more
I
memorable.
thought you were
than I think
confused
scene
that I was
actually
confused.
is. I think we've established that I am very confused about a lot of things that you're.
So I have a weird story that I'm going to tell quickly that happened to me a few months ago. So at my place of work, a friend of mine and I were going out to lunch, and it's sort of like a pretty popular area or like affluent work environment. And, like there's a lot of like offices and things there. So a lot of people take lunch in this area. So we're walking around, and this lady up ahead who looked something was off. I think she had a cast on her leg or arm or something. It's been probably a year now actually since this happened, but her lipstick was like kind of smeared, and like her hair looked crazy. She just looked like not well, or something. And then so she came up to us and she asked if we were IT guys. We were wearing badges, so I assume she saw that and thought
You look like a nerd.
Yeah, I look like a nerd. Okay, so she asked if we're IT guys, and we're like, no, and we're just trying to go to our lunch spot.
She believed you with just one.
No, she didn't. She's like,
come on.
We're like, oh, we're in a rush. We're just going to eat lunch.
see your
And
glasses.
she's like, it's okay. I can walk with you guys. So she's now walking with us. And she's basically explaining that like her laptop doesn't work and she needs some help or whatever. And she's like, can you help me, or do you know anyone who can help me? And so my friend steps in. And he's like, when we go back to our job, we can ask some people. Let me get your information. And so I thought he was pretending to write down her phone number and email address.
But they're dating now.
But he actually wrote them down. And so one
Wait,
thing
I'm confused about something.
What?
When you said she like looked kind of bad when she first came up, like did she look like she was having a bad day, or did she
Homeless
look like
or
she was
insane,
homeless?
or-
Yeah.
I would.
Or did she look like bad day, homeless, or homeless and insane, or homeless and insane and bad?
Do you know the difference when like someone comes up to you and you're like, "Hey man, do you have the time?" You know, like you one person,
never
the way
happens
they
anymore,
look, you're gonna say,
but
"Oh,
yes.
sure, it's 3:15."
You don't look like a
Another
keeps track of the
person-
time, honestly.
Another kind of person, you'll be like, "Get away from me,"
So you're saying strangers will profile me as someone who doesn't know time?
Yes, that is what I'm saying.
That's mean.
I'm just saying, if somebody's looking for an accurate time, they're not like, hey, that guy. I bet he's got a watch. I bet he's owned a watch. I bet he has places to go that he's got to know what time it is.
I do. I always know what time it is. Even sometimes when I don't look at my
Quick, what
watch
time
and I'm
is it?
just
Quick,
feeling
what time
it.
is it?
It's like 10:20.
Cheated. He cheated.
Go
ahead, finish your story.
Then we fucked. I don't know. No.
Sorry, that was my fault. I took this way out of the story.
No, so one of the weird things that she mentioned in her like rambling was that she's like, "Don't worry, I'm not a crazy person. Believe me."
Oh my God, that is a telltale sign of somebody being a crazy person.
Well,
by the way.
she's like, "Believe me, I'm not a crazy person. I come from a really affluent family. My dad was the heir to the A&P fortune, the A&P supermarkets." And we're like, "Oh, okay, whatever." And she said her name, which I forget at the
Crystal AMP. A&P.
Yeah, exactly. And so my friend took her information. So when we got back to work, he was like, "Oh, I'm going to look her up and see if what she was saying was true." So we looked her up, and turns out she's telling the truth, that, you know, she is the heiress to the A&P fortune, and it's like billions of dollars. So whatever. So then it turns out that family owns the Ocean Club, or I don't know if that's the actual name of it, but whatever, like the big Jamaican, or it's either Jamaica or the Bahamas or somewhere.
Yeah, Bahamas, I think.
There's this big like club where they film the Bond movies. Like they've been there several times.
Okay.
And so in that scene when he wins the car from the other dude, the Greek guy, there's a woman sitting next to him, and that is not her, but her mother.
Oh, and we just put her on blast for being a crazy person.
Yeah, yeah.
By the way, that is the number one way to find out if somebody's a crazy person, if they volunteer the fact that they're not a crazy person. Because most people's heads don't even go there. But if you've been accused of being a crazy person, because you are several times, that's the first thing you're like, hey, wait, I just want to let you know I'm not a crazy person. Nothing makes you seem more crazy and is a more accurate predictor of your own craziness.
But there's also the kind of crazy that will walk up to you and be like, look, I'm crazy.
Yeah, exactly. That's like prison crazy. Like, I am crazy. You see his eyes?
But there's
crazy.
also like that rich like trust fund crazy, you know, like people who are so wealthy that they're just
that they're not hospitalized as they should be.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That can be the same too. Like, look, I'm crazy. I've had money all the time, and I don't know what it means anymore.
Right. I've never had to like
or it
worry
could be
about
like,
anything.
I swear I'm not crazy. If you ever find yourself protesting that you're not crazy, just take a second, just pause and be like, wait, am I? Because there's a good chance.
I've been taking that pause a few times in my life. If you know what I mean.
Like when these people are like, hey, does anybody know the time? Not you. Does anybody here know the time? Anybody got the time?
And then I
no,
sit
you're
there
good.
and I'm like,
don't worry about it.
am I crazy? And I sit there for a long time. Sometimes I cry a little. No.
So
where were we? The Bodies exhibit?
talking about a Bond movie?
He kills a guy in front of a massive crowd of people in the middle of a bunch of people in the Bodies exhibit. He stabs a man. There's the most uneventful knife fight in the world where
that Bodies exhibit is so engaging and impressive though that you would never notice if someone was being stabbed to death in the middle of 100 people.
That's basically what they're going for, because they actually show us a wide of like the whole area, and everyone's turned around to this news crew that's doing a report. So we're like, oh, okay, they're looking at the news crew. But you know what else that wide shows? That there is not a chair within 20 feet of them. So when he rests that guy down in a chair, he had to walk him. So not only did he murder this man with a knife in the middle of 100 people, then he carried the corpse across the floor and set it down in their chair, and nobody noticed.
Yeah, he's not bleeding.
He burned him all the way across the floor
This
of
would
the
be
body.
this would be the moment in a Roger Moore movie where some old person would look at him all suspicious, and he'd be like, "He's dead, tired," or something.
What's that one? The one director in the Moore era always had the pigeon. There'd be like a pigeon inside the body.
Don't do like a double take.
What?
Well, one interesting thing is in the trivia it said that because of those bodies, this is the first Bond movie to have to show actual human corpses.
Yeah, I feel like they didn't do enough with those bodies. I mean, they're cool and everything, but like, it's just atmosphere.
I mean, question though, are they not props?
No, those are
they're
real. Those are real things. Yeah, those are the
Oh,
bodies
the Bodies
exhibit.
exhibit?
Yeah.
They use real. They like.
I know what the
they-
Bodies exhibit is,
they,
but
like,
Well, apparently you
embalm it and
don't.
stuff.
They use real corpses.
No,
Those are-
I'm saying for this movie, are they not
I
replicating
think
it?
they shot it at the actual exhibit.
Yeah. I think they used a live exhibit. They just
Yeah.
cleared everybody out of there and brought in extra.
And actually, I think it was in Europe somewhere that they shot that. And they just
Yeah,
passed it
I
off
read
from
that it was in
Miami.
like
Yeah.
Czechoslovakia or something.
Yeah. It was like, so Bodies
yes.
was on tour in Czechoslovakia, and they were like,
So
we'll
they were
bring
like,
a
"Hey,
production over there.
this is a
shut it
boring
down.
scene. What
We're
can we
gonna
do?
put a bunch
Let's
of
shoot it at the
extras in
Bodies
there."
exhibit." And that's
Extras
really
doing a great job in that one too. Oh, look, it's a body.
oh, look, I'm not seeing any murders anywhere. I don't know why they're British in Miami in Czechoslovakia, but they are.
Miami in Czechoslovakia.
Also, Bond, once again, just James Bond, not a great spy, because in this movie, the cold open is a super sloppy kill. Then he gets caught on camera assassinating the guy at the embassy, and then he's trailing this dude at the Bodies exhibit, gets found out, and the guy gets a drop on him and sticks a knife in his back. And then later, when he's trailing the other guy to the airport, he also gets identified by the oldest trick in the book, I think I'm going to try on sunglasses even though I'm on a secret mission, and the guy spots him in the mirror as he's
and
trying
after that, he gets literally arrested by hundreds of state and federal Miami police.
Which is, he accomplished his mission at that point, so he can just get his connections to get him out. But still,
But at
yes,
the time,
not
they
a
were
gr-
like,
not a
"We
great
got
look."
him.
Not a great look. Yeah, we got the terrorist. But I just couldn't get over the sunglasses thing where it's like he's standing behind this dude who's looking into a sunglass mirror, and I'm like, do you really think this dude is like, oh yeah, I could get a pair of Ray-Bans for my like big explosion that I'm going to cause or whatever? It's a double. And then when the guy disappears, the guy uses like Bond has to like hide and make it look like he's not looking at the guy, and the guy vanishes. And I want to credit Daniel Craig for really selling the moment where he's like, I'm James Bond, I got this. And then the guy disappears and he's like, oh shit, oh fuck, where'd he go? Oh shit, oh fuck. And then he finds him again. He's like, oh yeah, I got this. This is cool.
It's kind of silly how that happens though. So like the guy, what we're seeing from the camera is the guy just like dips, like he's ducking. So
Yeah.
like
just out of frame.
just out of frame. And then so Bond is like, oh, where'd he go? But what I want to see is like that full shot like of what that guy's doing and not cutting away. Like he literally ducks down and then like tiptoes
It's
away.
like duck walking across the floor.
And like nobody sees him like doing this. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone else is like sort of looking at him like, what the fuck?
What the fuck is this guy doing? And somehow Bond like doesn't see where
Just
he goes.
like I want to see somebody bend down to pretend to tie their shoe and just get stuck there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still tying it, okay?
Also, as long as I'm pointing out stuff that I think is stupid, the grand unveiling of this giant plane is like at 8:00 at night. Like,
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, what time is it? Because they were at a poker game at nighttime. Then he had sex with the guy's wife at nighttime. Then
he
they
flew
got
to
on a
Miami
plane and
at
flew to
nighttime.
Miami at nighttime. Then they went to the open bodies exhibit at nighttime, killed a guy, left, went to the airport.
Where there's a plane unveiling, which maybe it's at midnight, like they couldn't unveil it till the next day for some reason, and they were like, legally, we're not allowed to unveil this until...
Maybe we can assume it's like the dead of winter, and when he had sex with the guy's wife, it was still...
We're forced to assume that.
Yeah, it was
We
like
can't
5 p.m.
assume we're-
Yeah. Yes. No, it's one of those things that, like, as a screenwriter, this is something that when you're working on something, this is something that the producers would be like, this doesn't make any sense. We've got all these scenes, and it all takes place at night, and blah, blah, blah. We got to change this. And then you put it in a movie, and nobody notices at all until I've watched this 35 times.
Until you listen to a podcast.
Yeah.
about it.
No, until I've watched this for the 35th time, and I'm like, that's kind of weird.
I noticed that. I'm like, this is a really
Well, I think
long
first of all, just
night.
the unveiling of the plane at night would never happen.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah,
would they do
No,
that?
of course not.
Yeah.
Of course not. And then we have the awesome car chase that Matt doesn't like for some stupid reason.
We've already talked about it at length. Let's move on.
And then we got the crackling conversation on the train, which ends with, I think, the best joke of the movie, which Colin did not like because it wasn't cheesy and dumb, where she asks him how his lamb was, and he says,
Skewered.
One sympathizes.
I actually love that line.
It's a very
Wait,
clever
what?
joke
Skewered, one sympathizes. You don't remember that one?
because he just got skewered by the whole conversation because she... Okay.
Is this that same conversation where they psychoanalyze each other?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
She says, how's your lamb? That's like how it ends, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's not a joke. It's not funny.
There's no pun. There's no wah wah sound. There's no Benny Hill music.
Where was the wah wah
There's no Benny Hill music. There's no slide whistle. No pigeons doing a double take.
Wah wah sounds?
She also says some line about his like perfectly formed ass, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you noticed?"
Yeah,
he hadn't stood
that one's good.
Then we got the nice joke about the when he's reading her their cover stories, and he's like, "You're Miss Stephanie Broadchest,"
Right.
which is
Oh,
like
yeah.
sort of a play on the
But that one
standard.
it was hard to hear. He was like trying to make it so it was hard to hear for her, but it was hard to hear for the audience.
Stephanie Broadchest.
Yeah, he's like Broadchest.
I got it.
I got it.
I mean, I heard it. Yeah.
I
Well,
am
so we
a
all heard it,
proponent
but-
of his mumbling, but I think that part I got. Yeah. Okay, so all this stuff happens, and there's a big card game, and he has a tell. What's his name? Lashif.
Yeah, he
right.
rubs his eye.
He rubs his eye, it like twitches or whatever, and Bond tells what's her
Mathis
name? Vesper
and
and
Vesper.
Mathis. That he's got to tell, it's his eye, blah, 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 I got this guy. And then he loses after seeing him do the tell. And he's like, what the fuck? How did this happen? He must have been informed somehow that I am aware of his tell. And he right away, or not right away, he kind of later on figures out it had to be Mathis.
He comes to that conclusion later on after, because he still trusts Mathis after all this goes down in the casino. He still thinks Mathis is on his side, but he puts it together later that they must have tipped him off because he certainly couldn't have just misread the tell or something.
Right.
At this point,
I love that shot where he, like, everyone gets up from the table and he's just like, and he's just sitting there.
Shit.
Yeah.
Also, I want to point out that the dealer is. Why is the dealer wearing this tacky playing card vest. It seemed so like they're in the classiest casino in the world. It's like this multi-million-dollar buy-in for this thing, and they've got this like poker dealer on loan from Foxwoods that's like, looks like he's wearing this.
It looked real.
He's
to
wearing
me.
this Party City vest.
He's still a deal. He's still on the job. He's
oh my
still,
god!
like,
No, just dress him up
he's
in a
still there
tuxedo
for
like
their
a normal
amusement,
person.
not there because
What's
he
funny
wants
is
to
I
be.
think that guy is like an actual dealer at.
Yeah,
probably.
he has
Yeah,
to be.
I would assume so.
That's probably his best like dealer suit.
Yeah. And we do have the great stairway fight in the middle, which was also awesome. I loved how the guys are like throwing themselves down the stairs, the machete thing, and just she is barely running down the 4 flights of stairs ahead of them as they launch each other and themselves down the stairs.
Yeah, this is because of the thing that doesn't make sense. This is like a part of the movie I don't like.
What thing that doesn't make sense?
So he goes. They're playing the game. They take a break. He goes to Mathis. He gets the bug.
Are we
and then
talking
he plants
about the bug
in the
again? All right.
inhaler.
I don't
which-
need to, we
why
don't
did
need
he
to talk
leave-
about it again. You already said that.
Those are all really
But we've discussed
necessary
that.
plot points that are like right in this section, and that
so it's
took
like
me out of
fruit
it.
of a poison tree. Everything
took
from
me
there
out of
on
that
out
part,
is
yeah.
invalidated. Okay, I did not take me out, although I did have the same complaint.
And also, he's not concerned with who the betrayer is yet because he's just really pissed. He's like, I can definitely beat him.
well, he doesn't. Well, this is before he loses.
No, I mean, but like when he does lose, and you were like, why doesn't he think Mathis did it, or why doesn't he like, say that then?
Right.
He's like, he doesn't care at that point. He's just like, I can definitely beat him.
Well, that's why he assumed he had $5 more million to work with.
Yeah.
and you know what? Honestly, I thought it was interesting that the whole. I mean, the Vesper Lynd character I think is a good Bond girl, and Eva Green is amazing, gorgeous, delightful, and everything. And this is like sort of her peak. But I feel like there was this tendency for this character to almost be like written as the standard wet blanket female. Like it's just throwing cold water on everything the cool guy wants to do.
I don't think. That's
but-
why. Yeah.
Well, but I think to her credit, she never becomes unlikable, even though that's very much
That's
what
because Eva Green's really good.
Exactly. She's really good. But also, once we realize her ulterior motives, it all makes sense. And it's not that she's a wet blanket. It's that she actually literally was trying to stop him from doing everything. She had to stop him from doing everything he was doing while playing this wet blanket character to pass it off as,
So
whatever.
here's some cheesy dialogue I just found. She says, you're not going to let me in there, are you? You've got your armor back on. That's that. And he says, I have no armor left. You've stripped it from me. Whatever is left of me. Whatever is left of me. He says it twice. Whatever I am, I'm yours.
Well, sure,
Definitely.
when you read it like that.
Exactly. People don't talk like that, though. People don't talk like
cheesy.
that.
Yeah, it is pretty cheesy.
I'm going to find more. You guys keep talking.
Okay. So then he wins with the 6-7 suited, I believe.
Yeah, I had so many questions about that. First of all, like, why was he? It was a 5-7 suited. It wasn't even connectors.
No, not connectors.
A 6-7 would have been a better hand.
5-7 suited is worse.
He had a terrible hand. So was he the high blind or something? I don't understand. We had a guy who was king queen suited. We had a guy who had a pocket pair of 8s. We had a guy who was
Good hands.
ace 6. They're
Good
all
hands.
better hands than Bond has. They didn't raise him out. He should have never seen the flop. That's insane. And frankly, after the flop came out, why was Le Chiffre in the game? He had the worst hand by. He had a 6%
ace-6?
chance. The ace-6 was nothing. After the flop, he was screwed.
What was the flop? See, that's why I like got that he had a really bad hand and he shouldn't have still been there. But I was like, I don't want to go back and look at what the flop and the river and the turn were because I don't want to take the time to do that. But I'm sure that knowing the flop and the river and the turn would have made it make even less sense that he was playing those cards.
The guy with the king queen, the Asian guy had a flush on the flop.
On the flop?
On the flop.
That means he had a flush on the flop.
Le Chiffre?
No, that means Bond had a flush. He was suited.
Bond did have a flush. It makes sense for Bond.
Oh,
to be
that
playing,
makes sense then.
It makes sense for Bond to be playing after the
okay.
flop.
I get it.
Bond shouldn't have been playing to the flop because somebody should have raised one of the other guys who had an amazing opening hand.
Well, there's only
should have
4 of them.
raised
He's
huge.
like, I'm going to see a flop. I've been winning a lot.
Yeah, I know, but somebody should have made him pay a lot more for it because he
Yeah.
should not have been in that game. And Le Chiffre should have bailed after the flop because he clearly knew everyone else was a player. That's
Big
when
time.
They had a guy who had a flush and a guy who had 3 of a kind.
Yeah.
And Bond was just going to clean everyone's clock. Those 2 guys got beat by the 2 worst hands of the table. Both beat those 2 guys just because they did not play aggressively enough at the beginning.
But they also
Very
had
dumb.
way less way less bank is the thing.
Well, yeah, I get
which
that,
does affect.
But
it.
I mean, that's when you push all in on a pair of eights, pocket pair of eights. That's like, why not? Just make somebody else pay a lot of money.
He waited until the
exactly. He waited until he knew he had something, which is when everyone had something.
You know, James, I just want you to know that if all that was left of you was your smile and your little finger, you'd still be more of a man than anyone I've ever met.
That's because you don't know what I. That's because you know what I can do with my little finger. Is what he says.
It's a fingering joke. I would have thought you would appreciate that.
Yeah, I guess it is a fingering joke.
Yeah, come on, give that one a break. It was a fingering joke.
You know what I wanted him to do when she said that? Which hand? It's not really relevant, James.
I just wanted him to smell his pinky.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have made sense either.
He just looks her dead in the eye and does that, and she's just like, okay.
She's just like, oh, you know what?
I'm going to go.
Oh, I gotta. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Lashif gets killed at the end of the second act of this movie.
Nutsack hitting.
Oh yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about.
Oh, we can talk about
nuts.
the whole thing with the car flipping over a billion times. That was fucking amazing.
I love that part.
Yeah. It broke the world's record.
Because that part is funny to me.
Yeah.
Because that car really flies.
Oh yeah. I can't believe people aren't killed when they do stuff like that.
Yeah.
I also like the dinner conversation they have after the game, where she kind of chills out and like they have like a nice sort of. It's not cheesy. It's very like a grown up thing.
Yeah, they talk about something good. I made a mental note and now I'm forgetting.
The Algerian knot. He figures out the Algerian love knot and he sort of bows out. He's like, I get what that is. You got a boyfriend. That's
Right.
cool.
He's very lucky.
He's very lucky.
Is that in the book?
The Algerian? No, she's actually. I think it's a Polish aviator who she's not with him anymore. It's not that they've kidnapped him, but it's the Algerian love knot. I don't think is.
Is there like a love knot necklace? Because I thought
I don't remember, but I don't think so.
I always found it weird that it's like a knot necklace, and then the torture scene is like a knotted rope.
Yeah. Which everyone always calls that a carpet beater, which in the book it's a carpet beater, but a carpet beater is a big flat fly swatter
not a rope.
thing.
Yeah.
That is a monkey's fist,
right?
Which is a sailor's knot.
Yeah.
So in the book it's a carpet beater.
Yeah, in the book it's a carpet beater, and people always refer to this as a carpet beater, but I'm like, nobody beats a carpet with a monkey's knot. That's a monkey's fist.
They don't. Those people are wrong, and you should find them, and you should correct them.
I know. I do at every opportunity. I do at every opportunity.
Okay, but for me, this scene really took a lot of points away from the movie the first time I saw it.
Are we on the nut thrashing scene now?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the first time I saw it, I didn't know that was in the book. And this movie was part of, in my mind at that time, a greater trend in cinema that I was not into, which was Passion of the Christ, the Saw movies.
This isn't like torture porn. This isn't like Hostel.
Yeah, but to me at the time, I was so
implied.
sick of torture porn being like the hot thing that the fact that they had a scene that got close to torture porn in my beloved James Bond movies was very upsetting. You know?
Yeah.
But he was
And
tortured
now,
in
watching it today, I was like, this is not that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
He
I
hits
mean
him like
this,
4 times.
Well, it's
This
just
is very
rough.
much
Like when you see anyone's nuts getting bashed like that, like
and he's
you're
really acting like
squirming.
he's hurt real bad.
Yeah.
He's like, I got an itch down there. Like he was, sort
He's
of.
like,
Yeah, and it is. He turns out worse in the book because in the book they actually carve a letter into his hand to show that he's a spy. They let him live, but they carve a letter into his hand so everyone can identify him as a spy in the future. And after they just about neutered him.
How do they do that in the future books? Does he get like a skin graft? Or
No, he just always has a faint Cyrillic S on his hand, and I think they just forgot to keep talking about it. So,
and it may be healed.
Yeah.
We're supposed to imagine it healed better than the baddies would have thought it would have healed.
That would be a cool thing, like a scene to bring into the movies at some point. That
Yeah.
someone like tries to mark
It's
him
in the,
as a spy.
It's in the Pirates of the Caribbean.
but we'll cover that in our Parts of the Caribbean podcast.
Are we gonna do that?
No,
Right after the Mission Impossible podcast.
I mean, at least a Mission Impossible has a good movie after the first one. Ooh, burn on Pirates of the Caribbean.
Ooh.
I'm
okay. Yeah, I still like them, but they're not good.
So torture scene.
And now we get to the finale. And I feel like this movie has earned this slow part, which isn't as long as I remember it being.
Yeah, I
Like,
remember it being much longer.
I remember
too.
the first time I watched it just thinking, wow, it's still going. You know why it is? And I think this is a mistake on their part because this movie isn't perfect. It's close, but it's not perfect.
Whoa.
But I do think we're getting some semi-repetitive beats of like, we get it, they're in love, blah 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 blah.
Because they really have to sell their love so that when she dies, that it's like
Exactly. They must have felt like they had to, but we get repetitive beats of like scenes of them like frolicking in the rain and doing all these things. It's like we could have covered that in one scene.
But I also think you would fall really hard in love if someone was with you when you like had to like grow new nuts. You know?
You get committed to
But
that
they
person.
don't really like play up that angle very much.
I mean, he just sort of is better one day and they bone.
Yeah.
I could see her like a scene with her like and a nurse. She's like, "But what's the status of his nut growth? Have they grown back?"
Oh, I'm sorry. They didn't tell you? Nuts don't grow back.
But nuts grow on trees, no?
Could he grow one back?
No. This man is a absolutely genitalless. He's gonna have to. What he's gonna do is
Your
have to.
boyfriend is a eunuch.
Yeah, he's gonna have to fake it with a. Anyways, but I think the real problem is that without any hint that there's more story, we're kind of just wondering why all of these "let's bone" fade outs aren't accompanied by like the end credits coming up.
That's the
And-
mistake, is that we're like usually when this is happening, you think to yourself, "Oh shit, like so and so's still alive. He's gonna come back." And like,
Exactly.
But
They
at this
should've-
point, we're like, "What the
There's
fuck?"
nobody left.
It's meandering.
and they're happy, and we're just waiting for the credits.
Why isn't it over? Yeah.
And they should have introduced One-Eyed Gettler, that character, a little earlier, either earlier in the movie or at least in this after part. Like as he's recovering, we should see this suspicious dude stalking them and introduce.
Or we
it
could
then.
have seen Mr. White one more time.
Exactly. Yeah, we could have seen like that shit isn't right here.
I also
because otherwise
remember-
we're just waiting for the movie to end.
I also remember the first time seeing this, like now we know who Mr. White is. We've seen the other movies and we know. But I remember like when he comes in and kills Lashif, I was like, who the fuck is that guy?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally forgot. You see him in one scene in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Also, I love the score of this movie, but the happy music, it's just the same. It's the same signature over and over again. That just happy music theme, and it plays on every one of those repetitive scenes over and over again. And it's like, what the fuck? So that it wears thin. This is easily this movie has some minor flaws places. This is the one that I think really somebody should have fixed. Now I think they earned it because I think it's been a great movie up until that point, and I was like, fine, I'm with it, but that could have been better. I did like the final thing with the house collapsing. It's a really cool stunt. It's a cool idea, and we get a good fight out of it.
And the direction is like perfect.
Right.
You totally understand what's going on
Yeah,
all the
the
time.
geography is great as
Yeah.
opposed to a lot of the
And-
Brosnan movies that weren't.
Well,
Once again, the best
especially
one was
being-
GoldenEye, so clearly Martin Campbell,
Knows
director
his
of both
shit,
of them.
yeah.
knows his
Especially
shit.
being the next movie after Die Another Day, which had the worst flaw of having bad CGI special effects.
Yep.
They're like, this is where all the big CGI is. It better look good.
I think they kind of move away from that a little bit in the later movies, and we'll get to them. Yeah. But I think, this one stands alone, that it's like minimal CGI.
Yep.
Great. Yep.
And is that a fully automatic nail gun?
Yeah.
There's so many things
cordless?
wrong with that. Yeah, it's like A, it's cordless. B, usually you have to actually apply pressure to the front of the gun to fire a nail.
Right.
And C, the guy shoots like 18 of them in a minute. What would you even use that for?
I think OSHA will not allow that kind of nail gun.
Yeah. I do
Especially
think
with
that
all
would
those
be-
inflatable like tanks or whatever they have that's
Yeah,
holding
yeah,
the place
exactly.
up.
Yeah, do not bring that into the inflatable
And
tank
the
room.
machine guns that those guys. This is another thing that bothered me. Like those guys have those incredibly high-powered like machine guns, like that. And Bond is standing in front of like a rickety like slatted
like a
wall.
post. Yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me? Like he'd be dead.
Yeah. Well, that's classic. Bond doesn't get shot unless it's in the script. Really disturbing performance by Eva Green too, as she's drowning, and like she goes through like all the stages of like convulsing, and then her eyes bulge out, and then she's just sort of like.
Oh, I
sitting there
thought that was
staring out
cool.
this-
Like watching it now, it's like, oh,
I
that's
was
what
like-
it would look
I was
like.
like,
It's so
goddamn.
convincing that
Yeah,
it's
no,
like I felt like I just saw someone drown.
die.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure I ever seen anybody drown like that in a movie, and I was like, holy shit! Every time you film a drowning scene, you should just show your actor this and be like, do this.
Yeah. How do you
Like,
even
if
do
can.
that without actually like
Fucking
swallowing water?
nuts. Yeah.
You see like the bubbles come out. She's inhaling.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's very, very disturbing. I was bothered by it. And then of course we get the famous last line, "The bitch is dead."
Yeah, that's the famous last line from the book. Did you know that?
But couldn't she tell that he killed all the baddies? Why didn't she just not kill herself?
Yeah, I don't
The
get why
guilt?
she
Well,
killed herself.
in the book, and this is one of the differences of the book. In the book, it's they run off together, and then I think she just leaves him and kills herself because she knows she's going to be caught eventually. So this is the same idea. It's like she knew she could never atone for what she did, so she just
It's the guilt.
Yeah, it's the guilt.
Okay.
Yeah. Then also the novel. It's interesting. I realized the novel starts an hour into this movie.
Wait, was her spirit tied to the building? Maybe that's why she had to.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's it.
No, that's wrong.
No, yeah, it's like the House of Usher.
If this building comes down, I will die.
But the novel starts. The novel starts on the train with him meeting Vesper Lynd on the way to Casino. So the first hour of this movie is all something they invented, and really most of the last half hour is something they invented. So it's really that second hour of the movie is what is the adaptation. So it's a pretty good adaptation. Interesting also, when Fleming was talking about this first book, he said that he wanted Bond to be an extremely dull, uninteresting man to whom interesting things happened. And he wanted him to be a blunt instrument, which was his word. And that's why he gave him James Bond, because he heard that name and he was like, my God, that's the dullest name I've ever heard in my life. And it's also interesting that he wanted him to look like Hoagie Carmichael, who was a famous American singer. And
What is that?
and had a very
How do you spell that? I want to look this up.
It's hoagie like the sandwich, and, and Carmichael like the last name. But he has like a sort of he doesn't have a convention, like he's not a bad looking guy, but he doesn't have a conventionally handsome face. He looks a little like Timothy Dalton or Daniel Craig, a little bit wolfish, kind of bigger features. But it is interesting that this is sort of an adaptation that maybe got a little bit closer to what he was imagining. Show Matt.
Let's see.
Which one should I pick, though? Hold on. I want this one.
The hoagiest picture.
That's a hoagie. That's a pretty hoagie picture.
I like the cowboy hat and the smoking.
Yeah, I see. Very bland.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Just
pretty
like-
Yeah,
looking.
kind of a normal guy with kind of handsome-ish with biggish features.
And everyman, if you will.
Yep. Yeah, definitely an everyman. And then we get the button at the end with Mr. White where he
Like the
returns
best button ever.
Yeah, which
And you're sure it's Hoagie Carmichael, and he didn't want him to literally look like a sandwich.
I think it could have gone either way. It really is.
Sandwich. James.
all I know is-
sandwich.
James Sandwich.
All I know is they were
He's
getting
just a big floppy like ham sandwich.
there's just meat, cold cuts falling out of his mouth
He has a
every time he
lisp
talks.
and like mayonnaise sprays out every time he
The
says
sheep
S.
hits him right in the tomatoes.
He's like, oh, my tomatoes. He looks like Mayor McCheese. He's going undercover. It's like, hey, is that the international spy James Sandwich?
In a world where everyone's human, but he's just a giant
Exactly,
sandwich.
Exactly. He's like, no, I'm Lord St. John Smythe.
No, he comes up with like clever sandwich-based aliases. I'm just Tom Turkey. Oh my
Oh,
god.
no, my name's Reuben. Reuben Sandwich. Damn it.
Ruben Pastrami. I mean, fuck. Oh man.
Classic.
Someone, listeners out there, someone needs to draw a rendition of Sandwich, James
James
Sandwich, and send it to us. It'll be our. Well, if someone actually does that, I'll make it our new logo.
Excellent.
Licensed to be delicious.
Oh, classic. Are we ready to wrap this up?
I guess so.
Yeah. Oh. So what happens? He gets Mr. White.
Yeah, that's the end of the plot.
Bond. James.
We could
Bond.
talk a little bit about the
Actually, that scene's like my
Actors
favorite
or
scene.
whatever.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love that location wherever that is too. It's really cool.
My thing was, my only reason why I didn't love that scene was I didn't like the idea that it's hinting at us, like leading into a sequel directly, like sort of leaving it open.
I think that's
a little
loose.
bit.
Yeah.
But I also didn't like that, like your reaction. I still wasn't sure who the hell Mr. White was or how he fit into everything, because until I saw the scene at the beginning again, the first time I saw this movie, I was like, I remember that guy from some scenes, but I don't really know how he's a part of any of this.
My
which
first
bugged
time
me.
seeing this movie, my general takeaway was like, I'm a little confused about stuff and I don't quite understand what happened, but I fucking loved it. It was great.
I was
despite
still
that.
scared the movie was gonna fail. I was like, I know this is good and I liked it, but other people don't see the same things I see sometimes. And by the time we get to that last scene, and he's just like, does that, and it like you could feel it in the theater that it was like a good beat where it was like, oh yeah, and it was saying, there's gonna be another one. I was like, okay, it didn't fail, and they just told me that it didn't fail.
Yeah.
And he had that suit and the machine gun, and you're
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I want to watch more with this guy.
Yeah.
Full show.
All
And
right.
also because it was a reboot, I was like, and because one of my things was I want to see like the more of the old James Bond stuff come into the new James Bond. I was like, they got a chance to do that now because they have
do they
opportunities
introduce-
are limitless.
Do they bring Q and Moneypenny into the next one, or is it
Yes.
not until Skyfall?
No, it's the next one.
It's the next one. Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I feel like
I can't wait till we get to Quantum of Solace. There's so much to talk
The
about.
next one.
Yeah.
I have so many opinions on the rest of the Daniel Craig movies, but we'll just stick with this one for now.
Is this one a 10 all around?
I mean, it is for me.
Obviously.
I would give it a 0011 if I could. I mean, this is.
Are you kidding me?
This is so much what I think a Bond movie should be.
Wait, you liked this movie?
Oh, yeah, just it's pretty good, I guess. So yeah.
So
No,
in
this
your
is-
opinion, there's no greater Bond film than this.
not that's been made yet, and I don't know. And the one that Colin makes is just full of boob puns is not going to be better than this. What? But you're just goofy jokes.
Why are
and
you targeting me?
No reason, Colin.
Why are you taking this and coming at
no.
me so aggressively?
No, but this is, this is like the disagreement that we've had since the beginning. Like, is that I like the ones that are a little more serious, a little less jokey, where Bond's a little harder and more badass. And this is, when I saw this movie, I would have ranked the Bonds like Sean Connery, and then Timothy Dalton, and then Pierce Brosnan. Timothy Dalton, Brosnan being very close, like when I was younger. And I saw this movie and I was like, holy shit, this guy might make a run. This guy might have the a shot at the GOAT title there. And so it checks all the boxes for me. I understand why it doesn't fit Colin's taste particularly, because he does have like a different idea of what the movies should be, and that explains a lot of why we disagree on some of these goofier ones. But I mean, this one is.
I think I did make some legitimate points for things
Oh,
that
yeah.
I saw in the movie that were
No, absolutely.
like could have, even in a serious one, could have been a little
And
more.
are you giving this less than a 10?
Yes,
What are you giving it?
like an 8 or a 9.
Ooh,
I've never given a 10.
I know.
And he refuses to. I don't think I've ever.
Refused
I don't think I've ever given a 10 either. Did I give? I gave GoldenEye a 9, which was a close.
Yeah, I gave
yeah.
GoldenEye a 10.
I can't argue with that. I mean, but this is the guy. This is what I envision.
I'm confused by
Bond
Matt now. I thought he was gonna like just give it 1 point lower than Harris, because Harris was obviously gonna try to give it more than 10.
No, I'll settle for just giving it 10. But I mean, this is the
But
this
you're
is the
settling.
Bond. Well, I mean, because that's
I'll
as high
settle
as,
for perfection.
Yeah, that's as high as the scale goes. But this is the Bond that I envision Bond to be. I think Eva Green's one of the better Bond girls. The theme song and title are two of my favorites. The cold open is probably my favorite. The chase sequence is the foot chase is maybe the best action sequence in the entire franchise. And honestly, even with the dialogue is solid, and I think the plot moves pretty briskly up until the end. The henchmen don't have the over-the-top thing, but I feel like this movie is about Bond, and the Bond character carries it in the way that the bad guys don't need to in this thing. So yes, in ways it doesn't meet the normal Bond movie expectations, but it kind of rewrote the book on the Bond movie expectations for itself, and then they got right back to doing normal Bond stuff for the rest of the Craig series. But this was Bond never had an origin story in any of the other ones, and this is like the definitive Bond origin story, and I just don't think you could do it better than this.
I tend to agree. I think this movie's right up there for me. In my opinion, it only has two weaknesses. One being like that some of the dialogue is a little unbelievable and like kind of cringeworthy in parts. Between mainly like Vesper and Bond. But even like I think M and Lashif have moments where their dialogue feels overwritten. Overall, like it just feels overwritten.
Disagree on the M, but yeah, totally. I get what you're saying.
But so that's the one thing, and then the other one is that what we talked about, that it sort of meanders after Lashif is killed, and you're kind of like, okay, what's the rest of the movie? But it quickly makes up for it with that final end sequence is great, and like the button ending. I mean, if you break it down like we just did, like every scene is awesome. Every scene has You know, despite the fact that it's also missing a lot of the tropes. There's no Q, there's no Moneypenny, there's no gadgets. There's a little gadgets, but no like gadget scene. You know what I'm saying? Like him being given gadgets.
Yeah. And before I saw this movie, if you told me it was missing all those things, I'd be like, it can't be a great Bond movie.
Right.
But if
you think
awesome
about
makes up
it,
for a lot
those
of flaws.
scenes are like probably some of the shittiest scenes in all the Bond movies.
Sometimes, yeah.
No, I mean, okay, so I gave GoldenEye a 10, and so my question is like, is this movie better or worse than GoldenEye? And I don't know. I mean, I think it is one of the best Bond movies, like all around. Like, it's great. So I think I have to give this a 10. Also, they're equals in my mind.
Mm-hmm. I would give it a 9. It's like really good, but it's not quite as good as you guys are saying.
You already established earlier though in this podcast that you just don't think a 0010 is believable, which the number doesn't even really make sense.
Right, it's not a believable number.
But I accept that you don't feel like the perfect Bond movie's been made, and that you're like one of those professors who says I never give an A.
Yes,
and that's fine. I respect the 10 or the 9 from you, given how many objections you had to this movie. I still think that's.
I want to give it an 8 just to like.
That
throw
was
the average
bother Harris.
You would that would definitely bother me to no end. I kind of expected it, honestly, but
just to bother years from now, 50 years from now,
haunted by these.
Harris is old. He's just like there was. Do you remember when Colin gave Casino Royale?
There's only one man I've ever truly hated on my deathbed. I'm like, seek out Colin Shaw and avenge me, grandson.
What were his last words? He just kept saying, an 8? An 8?
Colin just like sends you the number 8 like in letter form like for years. Every year on this day I got an 8 in the mail.
It's a number 8 cut out of a magazine.
Yeah, or it's in blood.
framed on the wall like a girl with a dragon tattoo. Yes.
Or it's in sandwich meat. It's like a salami like cut out to be an 8.
James Sandwich 008.
Stop sending me that. I'm not sending it to you, James Sandwiches.
Oh my God. All right. So obviously we give this a license to watch.
Yes. One of the most indispensable of Bond films.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Great job. Great show. Thanks for listening. Did I forget anything? You guys are looking at me like, how dare you end the show?
Rate and whatever, and whatever
like
you
us,
normally say.
Subscribe, rate and review.
Got some Reddit shit going on?
Yeah, go to that James Bond subreddit.
Send us a message.
Send us a picture of James Sandwich.
Please, please, James Sandwich.
Please, anyone.
We need some James Sandwich in our life.
Please, let us see what he looks like.
Yeah, and James
Lettuce.
Sandwich. Yeah,
Let us see.
I get what you did there. And James Sandwich will return to play Hide the Salami in Quantum of Solace.
Quantum of Salami.
Bond.